A young man with blonde hair and blue eyes stood before the abyss, and behind him was a man with a sword. The young man's hands were tied, and he realized that his death was imminent. It seemed that the career of an S-rank adventurer was coming to an end. A little earlier, this white-haired youth stood before a huge monster. His entire squad was killed. The monster had huge fangs and spikes. Behind the young man lay the bodies of his dead comrades, and now he stood and looked straight into the face of his death. This monster killed everyone present, so it is safe to say that he is very strong. The young man holds his side with his hand. Apparently, he had already managed to get hit by the monster. The monster meanwhile began to roar, and white steam came out of its mouth. The young man stretched his hand forward, and a magic seal appeared in front of him. He used revival magic. Suddenly, the warrior lying next to him trembled with his fingers, and after a while he came to, grabbed his sword and jumped up, raising it behind his back to strike the monster. The young man cuts through the monster's body and defeats it. After a while, a girl and a man came out of the Adventurers Guild. The lady said that their business was going well, and this time they got a big reward. The man replied that the giant monster was on the bonus sheet. The young man named Alan said that they would split the reward equally, as always. The girl agreed and gave the bag with the reward to the young man. She then reached out to give the pouch to a man named Jose, and then walked up to a young man named Lichte and gave him his share of the reward. The girl replied that as soon as Lichte joined their group, they began to complete tasks much faster. Joe's replied that thanks to this skill resurrection, they can be reborn over and over again, but dying is still a very unpleasant feeling. The girl says that if Alan had not invited Lichte to their group, everything would have been different. The girl asked if the boy really invited Lichte knowing his abilities. Alan gave a negative answer. He turns around and says he wanted to have more people on the team and luck was on his side. Lichte was on his own, so he asked him to join. Lichte says he was alone because, until now, he had not shown his abilities to anyone. The girl asks Lichte why he didn't show this ability because it is so amazing. Even the kingdom needs his skills. The boy replied that he did not want to demonstrate his abilities because he was afraid. The girl asks what he was afraid of. He replies that he was afraid that evil people might take advantage of him, or that he might get involved in something dangerous. However, the young man smiles and says that the guys in his group treated him well like no one else, so he really believes that it is okay to show them his skills. The girl runs up and pats Lichte on the shoulder asking if he really loves them that much. Jose laughed and said that he was really grateful to the boy. The girl says that she means that it is because of Lichte that they are so invincible, and she is very grateful for that. She asks Alan if their dreams of S-rank adventurers are really not so far-fetched now. The young man agrees, places his hand on Lichte's shoulder, and says that he has high expectations for the young man. Lichte smiles and agrees with Alan. So they completed many quests and all of them gained experience, and each of them unlocked new abilities. Before they realized it, the whole group became so strong that they destroyed the enemies without using Lichte's ability. Zhao says, sitting at the table, that today's mission was simply amazing. The girl laughs and says that the enemies were super weak. Joust replies that it is understandable, because after all, they are S-rank adventurers. Alan gives the boys their next task. The guild wants them to explore a small temple. It's a very simple task and the reward is quite good. The girl is surprised by the easy reward and is going to do everything possible. But Lichte looked at this piece of paper questioningly. After some time, the group arrived at the temple. The young man thought that he was somehow lifeless and very narrow. Suddenly, Alan turns around and tells everyone that it's time to go back. Lichte is surprised that they explored so quickly. The girl says that everything is fine and it's time to go back. After leaving the temple, Lichte stood aside and watched his comrades. They were acting strangely, so the young man did not understand what was happening. He felt that something was definitely wrong here. Suddenly, he heard a voice apologizing, and then he turned around and saw many guards behind him. The young man does not understand what all this means. In front of him stands a man with a long beard looking like a priest. The man shows a piece of paper and says that Lichte will understand everything once he reads this document. The kingdom has issued an executive order, so the young man should not take everything to heart. The guards grab Lichte roughly. The young man resists but is told to stop. The young man asks what he did wrong, because he pays his taxes and works as an adventurer. The man replies that the problem is his ability. Lichte tries to understand how the man knew about his ability. The man says that his skills are too dangerous to leave alone. He is sure that there are many people who were saved by this skill, but it could be problematic if it is used for the sake of a demon's resurrection. Lichte says it's simply outrageous, and he had no intention of abusing the skill. He says that if the man asks his teammates, they will confirm his words. They decide to do so. Lichte turns and asks Alan to say something, but the boy walks past Lichte. He asks for his forgiveness and says that he cannot resist the kingdom's orders. He wants the young man to accept this for their sake. He doesn't understand what Alan is talking about, because if he leaves the team, it will be bad. Alan says that at that time they needed his skills, so they let him join. However, now they have stopped making mistakes and dying during missions. Lichte is surprised. Alan says that in other words, the youngster was now useless to them. As long as he was still getting a share of the bounty, it was understandable that discontent was growing within the team. Lichte is shocked. Alan says that's the whole story. He tells the boy to just accept his fate and be executed. He says that if Lichte is lucky, he will be marked as a hero on his grave. Lichte starts calling out for Shizuku and Juzu, but the girl giggles and says that she understands how Lichte feels now. But when the boy shouted their names, he won't change anything. She asks the young man not to hold a grudge against them and says goodbye to him. Alan receives his reward from the priest, while Lichte is blindfolded and placed on his knees. The executioner stands behind the boy. He asks if the boy has anything to say. Lichte asks where he is. The man replies that Lichte is standing at the place of the sentence, on the edge of a cliff. The man threatens the boy with a knife to the heart and a push off a cliff. Lichte scolds everyone, and the man claims that the boy should be grateful since he could have chosen a more painful way. The boy should watch his tongue. He says that who would have thought that an S-rank adventurer would end up like this. The man also says he has an idea. He offers him to bet the probability that he will not die. Lichte says that if he is going to kill him, he should kill him quickly. In this case, the man lightning fast pierces the boy's body with a sword. Lichte feels pain, and then his body is pushed off the cliff. He fell off a cliff. The man said that he was done, and that today had been a terribly stressful day. At that time, people were not convinced that Lichte was dead. Humanity didn't know then that at that moment, it was their greatest mistake that they were doing. Suddenly, a seal formed over Lichte's body. His cloudy eyes acquired a natural shine. Suddenly, he began to breathe, and then he came to his senses completely. Lichte stood up and looked at his hand, then asked himself why he wasn't dead now. The young man thought the man had missed, but he had not, for he felt himself pierced. He tried to feel the wound but could not find it. He realizes that this phenomenon is similar to when he uses revival. He thinks that he could have done it, but Lichte is the only one who can use revival magic. He understands that his skills are also activated when he dies. He also guesses that his former crew members did not know about this. It is likely that one of them hinted to the kingdom about his abilities, although Lichte trusted them completely. Lichte stands up and says that he better get out of here before it gets dark. He thinks that he can't go back to the Risego kingdom anymore, so he has to find a place to hide. From this moment on, Lichte's tragic revenge began. Due to the special ability that Lichte possesses, he was betrayed by his teammates and was executed by the kingdom. Afterwards, ironically, he escaped death with the help of the resurrection skill. After some time, the young man came to the edge of the cliff and saw a huge sea. Despite the kingdom's decree, he was revived. Fortunately, his former comrades do not know about it yet, however, he must find shelter. In this world, the ratio of humans to demons in terms of the territory they occupy is about 3 to 7. One day, Lichte heard that there was a suspicious cave closer to the border. He couldn't believe this information because it was from unreliable sources. He didn't know if this cave existed, but now he was on his own and had no other choice. However, it turned out to be just a rumor. Lichte fell to his knees in despair, then picked up a stone and threw it straight into the sea. Suddenly, the stone hit something and an unusual sound was heard. The young man raised his head and wondered what that sound was. It sounded like the young man had hit metal. Suddenly, an unusual door appeared in the stone. The young man wondered why there was a door in such a place. He jumped into the water and began to swim straight to the door. He opened it and saw a staircase leading down. The young man was glad that this was undoubtedly the same door and he had found it. Lichte walked along the stone and gloomy corridor. He wondered if he had reached the deepest part of the cave. He had not encountered a single monster, as if the entire dungeon had been turned off. He looks around and thinks that the cave is so spacious, but lifeless, but unfortunately, these words cannot change anything. The young man understands that he needs to resurrect the monster sleeping inside this cave. In order to survive, he must form an alliance with this monster. From what he noticed, this cave has existed for a very long time. Therefore, there should be very strong creatures living here. He is confident that his resurrection skill can bring back the dead, regardless of whether there is a body. He thinks he is going to do what the old priest was afraid of, but now it is not the young man's concern. He straightens his hand and uses the resurrection skill. A seal comes out from his hand. Suddenly, a huge roar is heard. He doesn't understand what this feeling is, like his soul is being sucked out of his body. He thinks that this definitely didn't happen when he resurrected people. Suddenly, the ground nearby exploded, and the young man thought that the spell had worked. Suddenly, several girls appeared around. One girl said, laughing, that she was finally alive. The second girl put her hands together and said that they finally did it. Another girl was feeling her restored body. One little girl was hugging a girl and shouting that she was so happy to see her. Suddenly, one of the girls noticed Lichte. She turned to her master and asked if it was possible that this gentleman had brought them back to life. The girl looks at Lichte and then gives orders to the other girls, telling them to return to their guard posts and make sure no one gets through. She and Lichte are then left alone. The girl asks if it is true that she was resurrected by the boy. Lichte gives a positive answer. The girl asks how he did it, since they had been dead for about 100 years. Even necromancers cannot resurrect without a remaining corpse. The young man is surprised by the number 100 years. Suddenly he senses the girl's ominous aura and says that he himself is not sure about the details, because it is unexpected for him too. They look at each other. Suddenly the girl starts laughing and says that Lichte is a very interesting guy. She says that means the boy can actually raise the dead. She asks if he wants to join them. The boy asks if it is really possible. The girl gives a positive answer and also says that besides this, it seems that he is in big trouble. He says he doesn't know what his circumstances are there, but she wants to lend the boy a helping hand because he resurrected them. Lichte thanks her and says if she doesn't mind, he thus becomes part of the Demon Lord's army. Things turned out a little differently than he imagined, but he has nowhere else to go, so he will be grateful for this offer. Lichte asks the girl's name. She says that her name is Arya, and the young man can bow to her as the legendary Demon Lord herself. The young man introduces himself and says that his name is Lichte. Then he asks about the other 4 girls. Arya replies that they are her faithful servants. They are also very grateful to the young man for resurrecting her. The young man thinks that he hasn't had a chance to talk to the other girls yet, but apparently they are Arya's subordinates. Since Arya trusts them completely, they must be powerful and capable servants. Meanwhile, the girl says that their main task is to restore dystopia. Even though 100 years have passed, it seems that the layout has not changed at all. The young man asks about dystopia. The girl says that in fact this dungeon they are in has another name, the Hero Killer. It's a good thing it was built so strong that the girls can still use it. The young man asks how he can help them, and then tells the girl to know in advance that his fighting skills are mediocre. Arya asks the young man not to be stupid and pats him on the back. She asks why she should change her plans and send the young man to the battlefield. She says that she values his abilities very much. Besides, she has a person who would be perfect for the young man. She will not assign him strictly to a certain area of the dungeon. The young man says that he is sure that this cave is huge, and these 4 are responsible for guarding all the territories. The fact that all this is guarded by only 4 servants means that they are short of manpower. The young man asks if Arya has noticed anything unusual about these 4. The girl says that she didn't notice, although before they died they all looked exhausted, and she also says that there wasn't even enough time to sleep. Lichte realizes that it seems that the protected area is so vast that they don't even have time to sleep. To think that dystopia, also known as the Hero Killer, was a kind of hard labor. Lichte says he thinks they need to look at this situation from a different perspective. The girl asks if he really thinks so. In that case, she orders him to discuss it with the girls. She waves her hand at him and says that she leaves this situation to Lichte. After some time, Lichte comes to the area closest to the deepest part of the dungeon. The young man apologizes for the intrusion. In the Hall of Melancholy, the girl Ferris forgave the young man and went about her business. Lichte noticed her busyness, and she replied that everything was fine. Ferris added that the feeling of completion was priceless. Then she asked why the young man had come. Lichte looks at the girl and wonders if she is human. Since her territory is in the very depths, it means that she has impressive strength. The boy says that he heard that they were all working hard to protect dystopia, so he wants to find a way to reduce the girl's workload. He says that he already got permission from Arya. The girl bows at Lichte's feet and shouts that he is their savior, so she is ready to cooperate. Lichte asks Ferris how many zones are under her responsibility. The girl replies that there are about 5 zones. Lichte is shocked. The young man thinks that under normal conditions, each zone contains a very strong monster. Ferris and the others are high-level demons rather than monsters. Not to mention, they don't look like regular servants at all. Lichte wonders why Ferris is in charge of 5 separate zones at once. The girl says that it is really hard when enemies attack. Since the zones she guards are closest to the Overlord, the pressure is tens of times higher. Lichte understands that dystopia is seriously short of hands. Ferris says that Iris and Tis are guarding their territory together, so the girl has even more work to do. They can't do anything here, she thinks. Lichte thinks this is not a problem that can be solved in a day. He says that filling the empty areas with traps is the only option. The question is whether Arya will approve. The girl says that the overlord is in a good mood now, so there will be no problems. The girl comes up and says that moreover, since Lichte is the one who resurrected them, she is sure that Arya will listen to him. The girl clenches her fists and says it's time for a revolution. Lichte thinks he can sense the girl's enthusiasm for believing the young man will bring change. After some time, the young man came to the virgin forest where Tis and Iris were resting. Iris tells her sister that they have a visitor. Tis stands up and apologizes to Lichte for not having prepared anything for him. The young man says that everything is fine and they should not worry. Tis says Lichte's name. The young man asks how she found out about it. The girl replies that she heard their conversation with the demon lord. She did not want to eavesdrop on them, but it happened that way. Iris says she's betting he came to help them assess the current situation. Tis says she's terribly sorry the boy has to do all this. Lichte replies that he came to find a way to lessen the burden on them all. The girls become serious. Iris asks her sister what they should do. Tis says she thinks they should listen to the boy. Lichte says that if he understood correctly, the girl is responsible for this area. They answer that this is exactly so. He asks why they don't split the work, then the other one can take on the next zone. Iris rushes to hug Tis and says that she refuses. Tis laughs and says that this is why it happens. She says that besides, their abilities are revealed better when they are together with Iris. Therefore, it is not worth separating them into zones. Tis asks Lichte to resurrect their doll servants created by the Overlord since they did all the dirty work. She wonders if it is difficult to do. The youth explains that he cannot resurrect soulless beings. Tis apologizes for the request. Iris suggests that the Lord create new servants, but Tis doubts that she will agree due to the lengthy process. The young man stands up and says that he will think about it anyway. Tis asks the young man not to overwork himself and to take care of his health. Iris says that she will keep her fingers crossed for the young man. After some time, he enters the area of another servant girl. The girl says that this is a bat cave and asks if the boy has any problems. The girl's name is Rose. Lichte understands that she is a vampire and therefore should sleep while the sun is shining, but she is definitely not sleeping. Lichte notices that Rose is constantly busy due to her zone's location near the entrance. He acknowledges the seriousness of dystopia's labor shortage problem and promises to address it. Rose thanks him for his efforts. Rose says that the others have it hard and in comparison, she feels that she has it easy. Lichte asks how many zones Rose controls. The girl says that there are 7 zones in total. Lichte thinks that Rose is undoubtedly dealing with the heaviest load. He says it's absurd and they need to do something about it urgently. The girl says she's a vampire, so there's no need to worry about her. After all, her stamina is much higher than the others. Then she smiles sweetly and says that it will be difficult if the workload becomes much higher than it is now. Lichte thinks that since it's just a simple lack of people, he thinks the only way out is to recruit them. Still, it doesn't look like he can just hire regular monsters. Suddenly, Lichte has a great idea. They need to increase the garrison so that dystopia can withstand invasions. Needless to say, recruiting will take a lot of time and effort. However, there is one person for whom this is nothing more than a joke. Every adventurer has heard stories about her, the legendary necromancer. Lichte and Ferris leave dystopia, and the girl is amazed at the changes in the world after a 100-year sleep. Lichte notices a bridge that was not there before. The girl says that most likely Rose built this crossing for them. Lichte understands that they are dumping this kind of work on her. Suddenly, he starts shouting for the girl to take care of herself because there is a huge wolf in front of them. Ferris says that this wolf is not their enemy. It was bewitched by Rose, she probably brought it as a transport for them. Lichte says that he is not sure he understands what the girl means. Ferris approaches the wolf and begins to pet it. She then tells Lichte to climb onto the wolf. Lichte climbs onto the wolf and is happy with his success. Ferris then sits in the back and asks Lichte if he knows where they are going. And the boy says it would be a big problem if he didn't know. This is the place where the legendary necromancer is buried, the hero's grave. It is used for worship, and apparently there are guards there, but they are few. Ferris says that if the operation is successful, they will have more free time. The girl knew that the Lord would give them permission. Lichte said that he did not think that Arya would approve of it. He thought he would have to persuade Arya to hand over one of her charges to him. But for some reason, the fact that the girl agreed so easily upset him a little. Ferris asks if even if they resurrect this necromancer, the dystopian lord will allow him to stay. Lichte says it will be fine. He honestly doesn't know why, but Arya seems to trust him. Lichte also says that they will most likely have to fight the grave guards, so he asks Ferris to be prepared. Suddenly, Ferris asks the boy to wait. She says that if she remembers correctly, Lichte's ability is to resurrect the dead. The girl asks if this means that he can resurrect her as many times as he wants. The young man agrees and says that it is not a problem. The girl thinks about it. Meanwhile, two men were talking at the cemetery. One asked if the other had heard that a group of two people were heading straight for the grave. The second man says he didn't expect anyone to come here just when they were on night watch. The man says he dares to assume that these are marauders who have come to steal all the goods. He does not understand how the earth bears such people. The other man says that it is unforgivable to get rich in this way, but to lay hands on the hero's property is even more unforgivable. Now they will catch them and punish their sins. After some time, the young man and the girl have already reached the place and began to pet the wolf. Ferris tells the wolf to sit here and wait for them. They head to the cemetery to the hero's grave. Suddenly, the young man puts out his hand and asks the girl to be careful. Two men jump out at them and shout that whoever hits first wins. Lichte manages to dodge, but the second man strikes straight at Ferris. The girl looks at her wound and laughs, then falls. Lichte runs up to her and grabs her hand. Then the girl's eyes light up and she falls unconscious. At this point, the man who hit the girl winced in pain. Then he fell and showed no signs of life. The same wound that Ferris had appeared on his body. The second man asks Lichte what he did to his partner. Lichte says that he understands. This must be what Arya told the boy. He uses resurrection magic and the girl comes back to life. She is happy and thanks Lichte, who says he would have preferred to hear about the girl's ability sooner because it really scared him. Then the girl gets up and approaches the second man. He shouts at her to get away from him. Ferris snatches the dagger from the man's sheath and, laughing, places it at his neck. Then she cuts her flesh and falls unconscious. At the same time, the man's neck also gets a wound and he dies. Lichte looks at all this with sadness and uses resurrection on the girl. She gets up and, as if nothing had happened, is happy that she is alive. She sees the young man's reaction and asks if something is wrong. The young man says that everything is fine. The girl says that the two might have called for reinforcements, so she thinks they should hurry up and finish the operation. Lichte and Ferris were walking through the cemetery to find the hero's grave. They read the inscription, which says that a necromancer lies here and her name is Dorothy. Lichte replies that the girl read everything correctly. He uses his resurrection ability to revive the necromancer. Suddenly, a hand emerges from the ground. Ferris and Lichte silently look at this hand, and suddenly a voice is heard from underground, asking if the girl and the boy want to help her. Ferris asks if Lichte is going to help her. He asks the girl to help him. Suddenly, they pull a girl out of the ground. The girl says that if they were planning to resurrect her, they should have dug up her body first. She shakes off her skirt and Lichte asks her for forgiveness. The girl then asks why they resurrected her. Lichte says that in short, they want the necromancer to become their companion. The girl is surprised, then looks at Ferris and says that if this girl is not human, then she will agree, but before that she wants to ask them one question. She turns to Lichte and tells him that he is probably not a necromancer, so how could he resurrect her? It doesn't seem like they have a master-servant bond since she didn't become his puppet. Lichte says that the girl is right and he is not a necromancer. He has a skill called resurrection and it allows him to bring everyone back to life. However, the resurrected do not obey his will. He also says that he can resurrect himself if he is not mistaken. The girl listens attentively to the young man. She says that she thought that his abilities were similar to Dorothy's, but she has never heard of such a skill or anyone who could use it. Ferris says that Lichte is amazing. The girl winks and says that all that is required of her is to become their companion. She will do everything possible to justify her resurrection. Lichte says he is incredibly happy about this. He then suggests that they all leave before enemy reinforcements arrive. They then arrive in dystopia. Dorothy says that the dungeon is incredibly large. Even if she summons all her spirits to guard it, she will need a considerable number of them to cover the entire area. Lichte says that it means it's not that simple. The girl smiles that it's not that simple and who told him that. The girl says that calling on spirits is her strong point. The girl waves her staff and smiles. Ferris smiles and assures that the spirits will soon guard the necessary areas. She is proud of her ability to control hundreds of spirits at once. Lichte thinks that the title of necromancer was given to her for a reason. The girl asks in the meantime if she can occupy one of the zones. Lichte muses that while the spirits are less protective than Rose and the others, it will allow them to focus on their areas. Ferris is surprised to be working for a demon lord after all these years. Dorothy then turns to Lichte and asks if he is human, and then asks why he is helping the demon lord. Lichte says that some trouble happened in the human world, and in any case, he has nowhere else to go now except this place. Dorothy says she doesn't know what happened to the boy, but she thinks it's best to close the subject. The only thing she understood is that the boy has some problems in the human world. Then Dorothy thinks that she better thank her the demon lord. After all, she is new here. Lichte says that Arya should be sleeping now, so Dorothy shouldn't worry about that yet. It's better to go greet those he considers much scarier than Arya like fairies first. Dorothy says that Fairy is the girl who was with Lichte. She would never have thought that such a little girl could be scary. Lichte threatens to stab himself if Dorothy tries to attack. Dorothy admits that this is scary but trusts Ferris and the others as allies. Dorothy doubts that Lichte can save her in such a case. Lichte tells the girl to be sure that if that happens, he will resurrect her. The girl says that if possible, she would like him to save her before the girl dies. At this time in the room where Alan was sitting, a girl came in and asked if the young man had found a replacement for Lichte. He replied that he hadn't found one yet. First of all, it's not that easy to find a healer of their level. The girl says that there should be at least a few. Besides, he just needs to heal their wounds, they don't need resurrection. The young man says that's what he's trying to get across to everyone. Each of the candidates is too weak. No matter how good their support is in the rear, they will definitely die in the front. The girl says, is the boy talking about protecting their healer? Alan explains that being a high-rank healer does not make him physically stronger than a normal adventurer, even in an S-rank group. The girl asks if Lichte was useful in battle. He says that Lichte is not a healer. Resurrection was just a skill, that's why his combat skills were on par with theirs. Alan tuts and says there's no point in dwelling on him. Alan says that they will take one person into the team to start with and let him be their bait. The girl says that she doesn't mind giving up all of them and who knows, maybe they will be much better off without them. She looks at the envelopes and says that there are many applications, so they need to choose. Maybe they will be lucky and they will really find someone worthwhile. Suddenly, the girl sees a letter addressed to Alan. Alan says he bets they're being asked to do a quest for them again. The girl asks him to take a look. He sees a quest to explore a dungeon. It states that a surge of enormous magical power was recorded from the dungeon. The girl says that this means that the monsters in this dungeon have awakened. It sounds very complicated. Alan says that at first glance, the dungeon is on the border of the human and demon worlds. If they take the quest, then this place is not far. The girl asks if this dungeon wasn't the one that everyone was talking about not long ago. Rumors were circulating that the demon lord himself lived there. Alan says the reward will be 500,000 gold. They smile and the girl says they have no choice but to take him on. A couple of days after Dorothy joined the group, Lichte and Dorothy were unpacking in one of the rooms. The young man thought that surprisingly nothing had happened during this time. Dorothy turns to Lichte and says that it looks like people have found out about dystopia. The young man is surprised and asks how the girl found out about this. Dorothy replied that she left one spirit to patrol the area near dystopia and eavesdropped on the people nearby. Dorothy explains to Lichte that she did not attack the spirits to avoid problems after their deaths. She also suspects that humans will soon attack them, knowing the location of dystopia. Lichte says they'll figure it out when the time comes. In any case, he thanks the girl for the information. He also says that fairies, Rose and the others are grateful to Dorothy for the spirits. The girl says that she is glad that she was able to help the girls. She says that in the past she was unable to find a worthy use for necromancy. So working here makes her happy, but still, when the battle begins, she wonders what Lichte thinks her role will be. Should the girl fight next to her, Lichte replies that it will be fine. Rose and the others will deal with them before they reach them, so he thinks the girl won't have to do anything. Arya enters the room and says that she was looking for them. Dorothy is excited to see her and is happy to see her, to which Arya replies that she is counting on her continued service. Dorothy is embarrassed. Lichte interrupts them and addresses Arya, saying that it seems like the humans will attack them soon. The girl cracks her fingers and says that since they want it so much, she will take care of them right now. Arya confirms that Rose and Iris will not leave anyone in trouble, but clarifies that Iris's power only manifests itself near Tis. Rose, in turn, is equal in strength to Oni, so she can destroy any person who stands in her way. Dorothy shuddered involuntarily. She asked Lichte if he thought the girl would ask Rose to let some of them in. Lichte said she probably would, but why would the girl want to do that? Dorothy says that she, more than anyone, understands what it's like to die at the hands of a vampire, so she sympathizes with them. Arya then says that she'll go back to work. The girl waves her hand and says that she doesn't really care how many enemies she has left. Lichte asks if she's leaving already. Arya replies that she's very busy today. Lichte thinks that Arya is not as scary as Fairy, but he still does not understand what the girl is thinking. Dorothy says that she is amazed that the boy spoke to her so easily. Lichte asks what the girl is talking about. Dorothy couldn't help but look up and say that Arya is definitely a demon lord. After some time, Alan and his group were riding in a wagon. The young man asked Alan if he was sure they were going in the right direction. Alan said that he got the information from the guild, so the road is correct. The girl asks, saying that they are traveling for a long time if their horses are slow. The man asks if Alan has any more information about this dungeon, because all he knows is that a huge magical power was detected in the dungeon. But that is not enough to come up with a battle plan. Alan tells Joes to calm down. He asks if the man really thinks they need to take action against the enemy beforehand. It's too late. The girl says that the boy is right. Besides, she hates using her head for such things. She also asked her not to blame her if something happens. Joe suggests discussing the distribution of the 500,000 gold reward. He believes it is unfair to divide it equally since the healer puts in less effort. The girl supports his opinion. After a while, they find the entrance to the dungeon. Shizuku asks where the stairs led. Joes asks Alan if he took the escape item. The place radiates danger and Lichte is no longer with them. Alan says he took the item and will use it as a last resort, so everyone else should be on guard. They tell the healer not to go too far and then head out. Jose says he senses demons, but then says they are spirits. He then says that what he found here is an undead creature similar to Lichte. Alan says that there are undead right now. They don't have enough stamina to get rid of them. They won't survive a protracted battle. Their plan now is to kill the monsters as quickly as they can. Lichte was moving his books. He turns to Dorothy and says that they have cleaned up most of the room. The girl thanks the young man and says that he really helped her out. Lichte says that it is not a problem. Dorothy says that spirits are absolutely useless for such troubles. All they can do is attack opponents and keep watch. This reminded Lichte. What Dorothy says is that one of her spirits noticed people nearby, which means that dystopia was discovered based on her words. Nothing out of the ordinary had happened since then. He wondered if people had decided they weren't posing a threat. Even if they attack them, they will not be able to prepare in any way. Dorothy says she was told that humans have entered dystopia. Lichte repeats the girl's words and is surprised. At this time, Alan's group sees many spirits. The girl wonders why there are so many spirits. The girl asks if Alan really thinks one monster did all this. The man says that no one talked about one monster. Jose said that having enough power to control that many spirits, so it can be assumed that there are a dozen liches involved. Alan asks if Jose is sure about that. The young man says that if there were 10 of them, they would kill each other on the spot. He has no idea what happened here, but he doesn't care. He orders Shizuku and Juzu not to act alone, but to stick together no matter what. Then suddenly Rose comes up behind them and greets them. She says that she is sorry that she was given the order to split up their group, so she brought them here. Alan asks who she is. He thinks that Juzu and Shizuku disappeared, meaning that she only moved him here. The girl asks permission to introduce herself, then says her name is Rose. Alan thinks that if this is his opponent, then she must be strong enough to refuse the chance of a surprise attack. He asks the girl about the dungeon. He says that Joss was wrong in his guess. Rose asks if she owns the dungeon. The girl says that she is his rival. Alan swings his sword and tells the girl that she did not have to say those words. He strikes, but suddenly his sword is not in his hand. The girl picks up the blade and says that it is very excellent. It saddens her to see how carelessly people use it. Alan asks how the girl was able to snatch his sword so deftly. Rose says that the boy's swing was too slow, so she borrowed it for a while. The girl returns the sword to the boy. The boy asks who controls the spirits. He says he can tell for sure that it was not Rose who summoned them. He orders the girl to tell him where this person is now. The girl says that she doesn't actually know the exact location, but she thinks the girl is with Lichte. Alan asks why that name is coming out of her mouth and if the girl knows it. He then says that it is impossible. The girl says that those are her words. She then asks how the young man knew about Lichte. Alan wonders why the girl mentioned Lichte. He should be dead. He wonders if the boy is still breathing. Alan ignores the girl's comment and creates bats on his hand. The girl laughs and admits that she is beginning to understand Lichte's feelings. The young man understands that he must somehow get rid of them. Alan suddenly realizes that he can't move. The girl says that with such a build, she doesn't think she'll be able to get much blood from the boy. Suddenly she wonders if she asks Lichte to resurrect the boy, then doesn't that mean she will have a perfect and endless system? She smiles and says that this theory definitely needs to be tested. The young man is surrounded by many bats. At this time, Shizuku was in some forest. She didn't understand where she was because she had just entered the dungeon. The girl thinks she saw bats for a moment, and then Alan and Joss suddenly disappeared. Suddenly she hears someone's voices. There were two girls standing in front of her, Iris and Tis. Shizuku sees beautiful girls. Iris suggests her sister to get rid of the girl. Chai says that it is an order from the Lord, so they should try hard. Shizuku takes out her blade and tells the elves to run away now, and she will forget about them. Iris says that this person is talking. She apparently doesn't know her place. Tis says that she is a person, so there is nothing to be done. Iris uses her fairy control ability, and several small fairies appear around her. They started to attack the girl. but Shizuku used her blade whirlwind ability and cuts down the small fairies. The girl continues to attack the fairies, but suddenly one fairy touches the girl's body and begins to penetrate inside. Suddenly, Shizuku realizes that she cannot move and her sword falls out of her hands. Iris is happy and tells her sister that the task is completed, so Tis should praise him. Suddenly, Chais uses the same fairy control ability as Iris, but her fairies are already adults. They enter Shizuku's body in the same way. The girl understands that. Iris asks what to do with the prisoner, but Tis suggests handing her over to Rose, since no specific instructions were given. The girl looked at them in horrors. At this time, Joss was among many spirits. Dorothy comes out to him and says that it really was a person, as they thought. Joss says that he has a feeling as if he has seen her somewhere before. Besides, this is the face of someone from the past, so this person cannot be here. Joe says it doesn't matter. Getting to the point, he'd like to ask a few questions about the dungeon, but he figures the girl won't answer them. Dorothy apologizes and says she can't answer that. But the man won't suffer like the other two. She asks him not to hate her for it. The man takes out his blades and exhales. Suddenly, Lichte enters the room. The girl asks where he went. The young man says that he spoke with Ferris. Suddenly, Joss calls the young man and asks what the young man is doing here. Joss asked the young man what he was doing there. Lichte replied that he had the same question for the man and asked why he was there since he had been executed earlier. Lichte replies that it is, but he was able to come back to life. He says that since Joss is here, Alan is too. He asks where he is because he wants to talk to him. The man says that he would also like to know where he is because wasn't their separation part of Lichte's plan. Lichte places his hand on his chest and exhales, then asks if Joes knows about the decree ordering his execution. The man says he knew about it. Lichte asks what his opinion was on the matter. Joes replies that their group would no longer be as strong. Lichte replies that it is just like him. Joe says that now it is Lichte's turn to answer his questions. She asked how Lichte ended up alive and what he was doing in such a place. Lichte said that he had already answered that he had come back to life thanks to his skill. The demon lord and her retinue were also resurrected by him. Jews asked the youth if he was telling the truth about the demon lord. He calls Lichte stupid and asks if he realizes what he has done. The young man has committed a grave sin that will forever go down in human history. The young man replies that he does not care. Joe says that once the king finds out about this, he will attack them with all his might and crush them, no matter what it costs him. Lichte seriously tells them to attack. Joe says he understands and then takes out his blades. He thinks that as long as he has this item, he will be able to teleport instantly. At any cost, he must return to the kingdom and report that Lichte has joined the demon lord. Dorothy calls upon the spirits to attack the man. The man pretends to attack but throws an object for movement. Lichte and Dorothy look at him as he disappears. Joes is transported to another location and realizes that a barrier has been erected. He is certain that he should have been transported to the entrance. He doesn't see a single enemy. Normally he would be happy, but this dungeon is much scarier than the others. Suddenly, Ferris enters the room and greets the man. Joes realizes that the girl is unarmed and there is no hostility, but he must do it. He attacks from behind and kills the girl. He breathes a sigh of relief, but the next moment he dies from the same wounds. At this time, the man reports to the king and says that contact with the adventurers sent to explore the dungeon has been completely lost. The man says he dares to assume that something terrible has happened to them. The king says he had a bad feeling, but he certainly did not expect this. The man says that he believes it can be concluded that there are many monsters hiding in this dungeon. The man says that it is not necessary to say, but the question remains the same. Are they enemies of the kingdom? If they are enemies, then a battle is inevitable. The man says that instead of limiting themselves to alliances with neighboring countries, what if they share information with the elf and draconian races? This case is a threat to every nation. He thinks it is better to form an alliance with them before it is too late. The king orders preparations to begin immediately. Besides, the monsters could regard their research group as a declaration of war, so he will not be surprised if they decide to take revenge on them tomorrow. Their kingdom will endure. Arya sighs and says things are not good. Lichte asks if something is bothering the girl. Arya says that the boy must have noticed everything by now. Lichte says that he has no idea what the girl is talking about. Arya says that they have been eating the same thing for several days now, so it can be considered that their diet is too meager. The girl believes that Lichte will say that it is inevitable, since they do not go outside. Lichte understands that their food is not very varied. It's not a problem, but there's nothing wrong with changing me up every now and then. For starters, they don't have anyone who can cook properly, only Tis can more or less. Iris cooking is not edible at all. Lichte asks what about Arya. The girl says that she is not confident in her cooking either. Lichte doubts that he can help either. The girl says, calling Lichte darling, that she has an idea that will solve all their problems. Lichte asks if Arya is going to order him to resurrect a chef. The girl says that they will join forces with the non-human races. After that, they will recruit one of their cooks and get a new source of food. Lichte understands that they mean barter. He says that it is not a bad idea, but what can they offer them in return? Arya asks to give it to her because in this dungeon there are treasures and weapons in abundance. It is more than enough. Lichte says that in any case, if they are going to ally with non-human races, then which ones? Arya says that right now the two races that are relatively similar to them are the elves and the draconians. They need the draconids to improve their weapons, and the elves because of their food and cooks. The girl giggles maliciously. Lichte shares with Iris and Tisa his conversation with Arya, where the Overlord suggested joining forces with the Inhumans. He plans to go to the Elven Kingdom first and asks for their help. Iris asks Tisa for her opinion, but she replies that if this is the Overlord's order, they must follow it. Lichte thinks that since they will be dealing with elves, he can only ask Tis and Iris for help, because they are high elves. Lichte thinks that the high elves have superiority over the rest of the race. Even if the girls don't want to cooperate with him, it will at least be easier for him to establish contact. In any case, if he can recruit the cooks, then their dining room will be full of gourmet food. Tis says that sounds wonderful. The girl says that she thinks that everyone in dystopia will dance for joy when they have cooks. Iris says that they could have asked her to cook for everyone instead. Tis says that the Lord is quite a gourmet. Iris's cooking is delicious and unusual. Tis says that this means that all they have to do is accompany Lichte to the Elven Kingdom. The young man says that if something happens, he will be happy to count on the girls. Iris excitedly shouts that they got it and tells Tisa that they need to try harder. After some time, Lichte looks at the terrible beast. Tis says it's their pet and calls it cute. Iris says it's the beast from Legend Fenrir, but they call it Fenya. Lichte thinks that, frankly, the mere presence of this legendary beast is enough to conquer the entire Elven Kingdom. The girls ask the young man not to worry, because Fenya is well trained, so he will not attack without reason. They are sure that there were once stories that a Fenrir that once ate human flesh is especially dangerous. The girl says she thinks it won't be a problem since Lichte can resurrect himself. The boy asks her not to let him do anything to him because he doesn't want to be chewed up. Tis says the boy has nothing to worry about because he hasn't even felt any pain yet. Lichte says that's not the problem. Lichte climbs onto the monster and thinks that his heart is still jumping out of his chest. Ira says that his sister is teasing him. Tis says that, however, when Fenya is saddled on an empty stomach, he becomes very angry. Lichte says that the young man should have been told about this earlier, so he asks to feed him more often. Tis says the air is so nice. Maybe she is an elf after all. Lichte says she is. Iris says dystopia is nice, but sometimes it's nice to get out into the outside world. Iris says she would like to take Fenya with them. Tis says there is nothing to be done, because if they took him with them, all the elves would be terrified. Lichte thinks that with his appearance they could be mistaken for intruders. Lichte thinks that if they are going to make a trade, they need to make an impression. Suddenly, Tis hears a noise and asks Lichte if he heard it. Lichte says he can't hear anything. Suddenly Iris says someone is calling for help and Iris hears it too. She says the enemy is a giant spider. Lichte says that if someone calls for help, they can assume that they are under attack. No one comes to mind except elves, because who else could be attacked in the middle of the forest? Tis says that it is as Lichte said, but he thinks they accidentally stumbled upon a giant spider. Once they spot the prey, escape becomes impossible. Iris says it will be too late if they don't hurry. Tis says they need to go this way and then runs in that direction. Lichte notices that the girl is very fast. Lichte shouts and asks if the three of them can really handle it. The girl smiles and says that they can handle it. Whether it's a giant spider or a furious beast in an immobilized state, they cannot resist. Lichte says he leaves everything to them. After some time, they arrive at the place. Tis says they seem to be late. Iris says they are just a little short. The spider gets very close to the elf's body. Tis and Iris are scared. Then they use the ability to control fairies together. They attack the spider. The spider is immobilized. Tis asks Lichte to resurrect the elf girl. He replies that he is already busy with it. The girl comes back to life and asks if she died, and then she says that the spider died. Tis hugs her and tells the girl to calm down because they defeated him, but he will not harm her anymore. The girl asks if Tis really brought her back to life. The girl says that maybe they killed the spider but Lichte resurrected her. The girl throws herself at the feet of the young man and thanks him. Iris suggests to her sister that the girl be their guide. The girl asks where they want her to take them. Lichte says that they need to get to the Elf Kingdom. There are many things they are unsure of, so they would be glad if the girl could help them figure it all out. The girl says to give her all this. She wants to be useful to her saviors. The young man thanks the girl and she in turn says that her name is Lyrica. The boy says his name is Lichte and there are two high elves next to him. The girl screams in horror. Lichte smiles. She says it's no wonder they are so beautiful, since this is the first time she's met high elves. After some time they arrive in the elven kingdom. Iris says it's very beautiful here. There's forest and sunshine all around. Tis says that she likes it here very much. She would also like to come here again and again. Now she doesn't even want to move from her place. Suddenly Lyrica runs away with Lichte. The young man comes to the accordion and asks what the girl wanted. She says that she told the princess about the young man with the girls. She said she wanted to meet and talk to them. Lichte is surprised because he didn't think that everything would be so easy. The lyrics say that the princess is waiting for them in that tree. The lyrics tell the young man and the girls not to worry because she will walk them home. Iris turns to Tisa and says that she also wants such huge houses in dystopia. The girl replies that she does too and then says that they will ask Rose to ask them. Lichte says that the girls should stop this idea because it will put even more responsibilities on Rose and she could die mentally. Tis says that jokes should be put aside. Iris should remember that it is forbidden to use bad language in front of the princess. The girl says that she understands. Lichte asks what will be stronger, Tis or the princess, to which Iris replies that Tis will be stronger and no one else. Lichte then asks who Tis respects more, to which the girl replies that she is a princess. Lichte says that they will have a deal with the elves, so she should try to describe it. Iris says that they would be extremely happy to use their jewels and weapons to help the talented people of your country and take advantage of their help. Tis praises Iris's speech and says that she is happy for the girl. She tells Lyrica that they are ready, so she apologizes to her for keeping her waiting. Iris turns to Tis and says that if the princess hates them, Tis replies that the demon lord will be upset. Lichte says that this will cause great waters. Lichte thinks that given all the risks and failures of this idea, he still hopes for a successful outcome. They enter the princess's reception hall. The girl bows to them. Then she says that her name is Lucy. Lichte says he's glad to meet you. Lucy says that she is already aware of the recent events. They saved their dear Lyrica from the clutches of a huge spider. She also apologizes for thanking them in this way for this deed. Lichte asks her not to worry because everything is fine. The girl says that she really doesn't know how to thank them. This huge spider has been tormenting them for a long time. They tried to defeat it in every way, but they didn't even suspect that someone else would defeat it. She turns to Mr. Lichte. She thanks him warmly for his help, and then says that she was told that the young man had a serious talk with her. Lichte replies that this is exactly it. Iris says that they would like to give the elves their weapons and treasures in order to help the talented people of this country and take advantage of their help. Lichte panics and does not understand what is happening, and Tis covers her mouth. Lucy smiled and said that she was glad, because that was exactly what they had problems with. Lichte laughs, but the girl says she's joking. The young man understands that he's also being joked about. Lucy says that, frankly speaking, there are many children in their country who would like to see what happens outside the forest, so she would be happy to consider the possibility of employing them temporarily. Lichte is surprised, but Tissa intervenes and says that she thinks it is not very good to continue the conversation in one direction only. Lichte says that the girl is right. Lucy says that if they don't mind, then couldn't they destroy their enemies just like they did with this spider? Because they themselves don't like to fight. Iris turns to Tisa and says that since that's the case, they can easily handle it. The girl replies that her sister is right. Tis then asks Lichte if he is against it, but the young man replies that he supports the idea. In his mind, he thinks that of course in dystopia, the demon lord does nothing but scratch his fists in anticipation of battle. Lucy says that in that case they can get down to business. They have plenty of children, so they can't worry. The girl asks Lichte to tell the demon lord that the elf queen is counting on her help. The girl bows after them, and then Lyrica accompanies them to the exit from the forest. After a while, Lichte said that the princess was very good and Arya should learn from her. Iris said that one should not speak like that, because their mistress had her own good qualities. Tis notes that Lucy said that she was counting on the demon lord's help, but did they ever tell her about their mistress? The young man assumes that contact has been established with the elves somehow, so the dragon men are next in line. Lichte and Rose flew over the desert. After some time, while Lichte was flying with Rose, the girl said that it was so fresh outside that it even lifted her spirits. Lichte flies with the girl and says that she should rest more often. Lichte senses that Rose is uncomfortable without work. He planned to go to the Dragonman settlement alone, but Rose joined after finishing her business in dystopia. Lichte asks Rose if she never thought that the day would come when he would fly in the sky. The girl says that flying is really fun. Lichte asks Rose if it will be okay if the sun hits her since she is a vampire. Rose says it is okay. Gone are the days when the sun's rays were her weak point. The girl smiles sarcastically. The girl then asks what they will do if they find themselves in a dragon people settlement and suddenly they attack. Lichte says that if they attack, they should not fight under any circumstances. Rose asks why not. Lichte replies that they need to befriend them so they can start remaking their weapons. That's what Arya said. The recently revived dystopia does not have all the capabilities to produce new weapons and armor. But if you try to strengthen your friendship with the dragon people, then even if they refuse to work for them in dystopia, then the orders in the settlement should definitely be accepted. And to get them interested a little, Arya provided her weapons from the warehouse. Rose tells Lichte that they are getting close, so he asks to hold on to him. The girl lowers Lichte. Then his wings turn into a bat, and then the bat turns into an amulet. Lichte grabbed his head and said that they had arrived. Meanwhile, the draconids were splashing in the river. Suddenly the girl felt something. The young man asked what his sister felt. The young man turned to his sister, whose name was Lichte, and asked what was going on. The girl said that she had a bad feeling and asked the young man if he felt anything. She then apologizes and says that she thinks they should finish up quickly and go home. The boy says that he really does think they should come back early. The girl replies that things are not easy for her mother right now. They took the nets with fish and went into the forest. The girl says she hopes her mother will recover. The boy says it is not like her to show weakness. The girl admits the young man is right but is concerned about her poor appetite. She suggests finding a magician healer. The young man doubts, believing that magic only helps with wounds, not illnesses. The girl says that the young man is right, but first she suggests that they return home, because maybe their mother will feel better today. At this time, Lichte was walking with Rose. They were looking for a settlement of dragonmen, but this place does not look like a country at all. Apparently, they are quite far behind the people. Rose asks if they plan to attack. Lichte prefers to negotiate first and suggests finding a local, believing the dragonmen would be more likely to agree to talk. If there are two of them, they will feel some advantage and attack them first. Such cases sometimes occur. Rose asks Lichte to look and then sees two draconians very young in appearance. Lichte realizes that there are two draconians after all. However, they have no weapons and there is no one nearby. Someone is shouting at them. The young man calls his sister Lichte and asks her to look there. The girl puts out her hand and asks Brother Kind to be careful. She says that the man looks human. However, that woman is of a completely different race, and she gives off extremely unpleasant energy. The young man lays down a net with fish and addresses Lichte, calling him a man, and then asks what his business is with them since this is no place for people. Lichte says that there is no need to shout at them like that since they are not enemies. They would like to make a deal with the Draconid people. Klein asks if he is a traitor. He says he knows the humans have nothing useful for them. If they turn around and leave right now, he will turn a blind eye to their behavior. Lichte asks them to first look at the sword he brought. He shows the sword and Lichte and Klein are surprised by such a weapon. They exchange glances. Klein hopes that the humans have a cure for their mother and is willing to offer any exchange. Lichte is skeptical of the idea but agrees that it is worth asking. Lichte asks if Rose has such a medicine, but the girl says that she has nothing but garlic. Klein asks where she got garlic from since she is a vampire. Lichte asks what kind of medicine is needed and asks for details. Klein explains that their mother is seriously ill and they are willing to do whatever it takes to get the medicine they need. Lichte says that in that case he thinks he can cure it without medicine. Klein asks how and in what way. Lichte says with his skill. Lichte says that if he takes him to his mother, he thinks he can help her. Klein tuts and says that if the boy has such an ability, he must prove it. Only then can the boy trust Lichte. Lichte talks about proof. He looks at the dead fish in the basket and asks if that will do. He uses his ability and a seal appears in front of his hand. Suddenly the fish in the basket came back to life and started flopping around. Klein and Lichte were surprised by this. They realize that Lichte is their savior. After some time, they return to the ladder. The Draconians are surprised by the humans' appearance and doubt their abilities. Lichte claims that Lichte is capable of helping their mother, citing his past accomplishments. They ask if the girl is sure of her words. Lichte answers positively. The dragon man says he understands and then asks Lichte if he can heal her. Lichte says that first, they should let them examine her condition. They approach the bed and examine the woman lying there. Rose whispers how Lichte will heal her. She asks if she can be healed if he resurrects her. Lichte answers positively. Lichte whispers that she can be healed by resurrection, but in order to be resurrected, she must first die. He says that all the Draconians are looking at them from all sides, so he doesn't think she can do it. Lichte thinks that if he does something suspicious, they will attack him without hesitation. If they use resurrection as a cure, then maybe he can gain their trust. Rose whispers to Lichte to leave this matter to her. The girl approaches the woman's neck, then bares her fangs and bites into her body. Suddenly, the dragonid calls Lichte and asks what this girl is doing. The young man says that she is simply checking her pulse. Based on this, he will decide what healing magic to use. They must definitely check her pulse. The dragonid apologizes for interrupting. Rose says she's finished. The young man approaches the girl and uses his ability to resurrect the dead. The woman opens her eyes and abruptly gets up from the bed. Klein and Lauka are amazed that their mother is finally healed. The woman turns to her children and tells them that the pain in his body has completely disappeared. The woman asks what could have happened. Klein and Lauka rush to their mother. They hug their mother with tears in their eyes, and Lauka says that Lichte was able to heal her. The woman says he doesn't know how he did it, but she feels good. She also asks the boy's name. The young man says his name is Lichte, and the girl next to him is called Rose. They are very happy to meet each other. The woman bows with tears in her eyes and thanks Lichte and Rose. She also says that she has no idea how to thank them. She says that she will try to repay the young man doubly. Dragon men always thank their benefactors. She asks to tell how the young man can thank them. Lichte says that they would like them to improve their weapons and equipment, and they would really need their help. The man asks if the young man is sure that this will be enough for him because they can do it easily. They forge a gun before breakfast. Kine says that he thinks that this is a little different. He asks Mr. Lichte to show them his weapon. He takes out a sword. All the dragonids are shocked and ask the young man what kind of thing it is. Lichte says that they will prepare materials for them, and in exchange they could improve the weapon. The man calls Kine and Lauka and says that they have an incredible amount of work to do now. Kine says that they will definitely repay them for their help. The girl confirms her brother's words. A friendly relationship has been established between Lichte and the dragon men, leading to increased cooperation between the elves and dragon men. This strengthening of the bond will help them to work together to combat any threats. People don't yet know that Lichte has acquired everything they never even dreamed of. Sometime later in Dystopia, Dorothy asks if they are really allies with the elves and dragon men now. Lichte gives a positive answer and says that the dragon men in particular are very grateful to them. Dorothy says that even she could not have imagined that there would come a time when they would become allies with them. The boy says he's lucky, after all, he just resurrected their mother. Dorothy says their mistress seems to have become very interested in the outside world lately. She also wonders if the girl really wants to capture him. Lichte doubts that Arya would risk it again after the events of a century ago. Dorothy confirms the taboo on such topics, and Lichte recalls Arya's anger when trying to find out the truth. Lichte suggests that the dragon men's weak military might is preventing them from conquering new territory. Dorothy agrees, adding that the humans' superior numbers make them a serious threat. Lichte says that there was a rumor that the human king had an ace up his sleeve. The girl asks if Lichte is talking about some kind of weapon or a ferocious monster. Lichte says he doesn't know, that's why he's scared. He says they need to warn Arya, maybe she can come up with a plan. Dorothy says it would be great if she spied on them, but she can't go into the kingdom. Suddenly, Rose runs up to them and calls Lichte and Dorothy. The girl says that they are currently having a meeting with the demon lord, so shouldn't they hurry? Lichte asks if it has already started. She says that this time it is very important because the lady had a quarrel with the Eastern Demon Lord. After some time, everyone gathered in the throne room. Lichte asks Arya what happened. Iris asks Tis why the Demon Lord is silent, but the girl tells Iris to be quiet. Firis tells the Demon Lord that she is worried. Arya lets out a sharp sigh and everyone goes silent for a moment. Arya says that she always believed that demons should help each other in the fight against their worst enemy, humans. So, she went and asked for help from the Eastern Lord of Demons. She flinched and said that this freak could have simply ignored her request. But no, he thought that she was insulting him, so he unleashed a magical attack on them. Rose says that this is what the attack was like that time. Lichte asks what the girl is talking about. Rose says that there was an explosion at the entrance last night. The young man replies that he did not know this. Rose says that the young man was sleeping at that moment. Arya interrupts them and says that it didn't cause them much damage, but they have no choice but to respond in kind. The Demon Lord asks his subordinates if they are ready to fight. Lichte asks Arya not to get excited, and then says that they don't even really have military power yet. Maybe they should hold off on declaring war for a bit. The girl replies that she has already thrown explosive magic at their territory. She laughs, imagining the fear of the people, and Lichte understands that the situation is getting worse. It is unknown when to expect an attack, and now the war with the Demon Lord has begun. The young man replies that this is true and that he heard something about this demon lord when he was still living among humans. No one has ever returned alive after a battle with this demon. I think his name was Garga. Lichte notes the power and danger of the demon, known for its destructive spells. Arya, however, does not know the details, as power in their family passes from father to son. The girl says that she will not leave an heir. However, she still remembers where their castle is located. Lichte understands that they have already decided on the place of attack. Iris asks Tis if they will really fight. She says she doesn't want to lose. Tis hugs her sister and tells the girl not to worry. They won't lose as long as Mr. Lichte is with them. Arya stands up abruptly and says that everything is exactly like that. Lichte is the most important figure on their battlefield, so he will give the girl a good workout. She asks if the young man needs details. He will be gentle with simply resurrecting the girls if they suddenly die. In particular, he must take care of Ferris. The boy says he understands and will try. Ferris says he has hopes for the boy because it seems they are on the same team, which means they are invincible partners. The young man smiles and says that they will do their best. After a while, Lichte says that they say war is voluntary. Dorothy asks what their plan is since they don't have much time. Lichte realizes that they have no time to plan due to the unpredictability of the Demon Lord's actions. He would like to go on the offensive right away, but the enemy can predict their moves. The enemy's forces are likely comparable to their own. Rose suggests a kamikaze-style attack, but Lichte is against it. Ferris supports her, noting her talent for unusual attacks, and Dorothy advises to wait. There are only 7 of them, so they are unlikely to fight face-to-face. It is possible to weaken Dystopia's defenses a little and use its spirits. Lichte thinks about it and says that it's not a bad idea. It's unlikely that the enemies can turn a blind eye to such a large number of spirits. Iris turns to her sister and asks what they should do. The girl says that they will have to accompany the dead souls along with the spirits of the forest. Rose asks for forgiveness and asks what she should do. Ferris says that apparently there is nothing left but a kamikaze attack. Lichte says that he will think of something for them. Iris sympathizes with Rose and offers her the role of distracting her enemies with her attractiveness. Thais considers this idea excessive. Rose clenches her fists and says she will try her best. Lichte asks her to calm down. Ferris remembers something and says that the girl can turn into a bat. Rose says that she is glad that the girl remembers this, but it probably won't be useful. Lichte says that the girl is jumping to conclusions too early. He asks if Rose can turn into a mouse now. The girl says she can. Then it suddenly dissolves in bats. A moment later, little bats were flying around Lichte. Ferris says she hasn't seen anything like this in a long time. She used to play tag with Rose, and she couldn't catch up to her as a bat. Lichte says he thinks he knows how they can use Rose's ability, and Rose happily asks if that's true. Lichte suggests that the girl be given the role of espionage. Rose says that Lichte wants her to sneak into enemy territory, surprise the Demon Lord, and challenge him to a duel. She says that the Demon Lord won't expect it, so it will buy them a lot of time. Lichte replies that he doesn't think it's worth going that far. The girl confidently says that she'll try. After some time, Lichte and Ferris were running away from a huge dark monster. He strikes, but the boy and girl deftly dodge. The fairy, which is Iris' ability, flies towards the monster and immobilizes it. Lichte says that it was to be expected. There are never so many monsters in human territory. If the Iris fairies hadn't saved them, they would already be dead. The demon's territory, which occupies 70% of the earth, and they are currently on the eastern part of it. Ferris turns to Lichte and asks him about the castle ahead and whether it really belongs to the Demon Lord. The youth answers in the affirmative. They sneak through the trees. Lichte says that he heard rumors about this place, but he did not imagine that the castle was so big. He remembers that all the warriors of the guild never returned alive from this castle. Lichte walks and thinks that he hasn't even come close to this castle yet, but his body is already holding him back. Lichte says that Dorothy and the others should have already launched an attack on the castle, so he thinks now is the time for them to move. Ferris says she understands. Suddenly, the girl notices something glowing in the distance, and then this something pierces Ferris right in the heart. The girl falls unconscious. Lichte runs up to her and calls her name. Lichte thinks that she was killed from such a great distance and so quickly. The enemy reconnaissance squad is on a completely different level than in Dystopia. He looks around and realizes that they seem to have stopped attacking. Apparently, the shooter died immediately after killing Ferris. Apparently, Ferris' skill called Bitterness worked. Thanks to this ability, all damage that Ferris takes is transferred to the attacker. Lichte uses Resurrection of the Dead to revive Ferris. Ferris wakes up and says that it was unexpected. She asks if the attack hit the girl. Lichte says that the girl covered her. The girl says that this time the attack was too sudden, so nothing can be done. She asks Lichte to be on guard. After some time, Ferris and Lichte move on. The young man thinks that they will not be attacked. The enemies should be confused now. This is their chance. Lichte had to use resurrection. It would be good if the enemies didn't find out about it. If they understand how bitterness works, then it will be very easy to resist this ability. In any case, the boy would not like to see Ferris dead again. The girl turns to the boy and asks what happened. Lichte says that from now on, Ferris should not leave his side for a single step. The young man thinks that if necessary, he will protect her himself. Ideally, he would like the girl to use her ability on the Eastern Demon Lord. And for this to work, his skill must be hidden until the very end. Ferris says that she, of course, is not against it because she and Lichte are partners. The girl gets embarrassed and says that she also wants to be there. Approaching the castle doors, Lichte says that they do not know what enemies will await them, so he asks the young man to be on guard. The girl grabs Lichte. At that moment, a huge man was shouting and asking what was going on here. The girl turned to Mr. Doba and said that she had come, and the girl was already in that state. Doba said that the enemy had already infiltrated the castle. Luluka's intelligence skills were among the best among all demons. He didn't know who killed her like that, but he certainly knew who he was aiming for. The girl turns to the gentleman and asks what will happen to the girl. The man says that they need to leave her now and they will sort it out later. The girl asks for forgiveness and says that she feels like she was killed in a strange way. The man says that he thought so too. There are no signs of battle in this room. The enemy may be very strong, but this girl could not have died without fighting back. The girl is Luluka and she led the demon army. Doba says that it looks like Luluka took damage right after the enemy's attack. The girl asks if it's possible that they have a demon that has the same abilities as her. Doba replies that this is unlikely because these abilities cannot be one-to-one, but there is something else here. Suddenly, Doba turns around. He realizes that someone has entered the castle. He orders the girl and tells her to inform the others about Luluka's death. The girl says that she understands. Doba also adds that it may not be necessary, but just in case, she should warn His Majesty the Demon Lord Garga. He then tells her that they will meet later once he is done with those scoundrels who have infiltrated the castle. The girl runs away and wishes the man luck. Doba takes out his sword, which is the Sword of Disgust. It is able to accumulate and increase its power when she experiences hatred and is now in its best form. Meanwhile, Lichte and Ferris have already infiltrated the castle. Lichte realizes that the invasion was successful. Dorothy's spirits have already surrounded the perimeter. Then Lichte they call out from the side. Doba says that the young man and the girl are very brave since they decided to invade the territory of their castle. The young man turns to Ferris and asks her to stand behind him. The man says his name is Doba. He says he sees that there are spirits of invaders everywhere and will they disappear if he breaks the young man into pieces. Lichte says who knows and offers him to try. Suddenly, a young man standing next to Doba says how dare Lichte talk to Mr. Doba. Doba orders the young man to be quiet. He then turns to Lichte, calling him a man and says that he asked for it. The man lunges and attacks Lichte, but the boy manages to block his attack. Doba says that he realized that the boy knows how to handle a sword. He says that Lichte is not like all the other people who dared to come to this castle. However, Lichte is not strong enough to defeat Doba, so only death awaits him and now he will show Lichte what strength means. Lichte blocked the attack with difficulty. Doba asks what happened and why the boy can't fight back, or is it really more important for him to protect this girl? Ferris asks Lichte for forgiveness and says it won't be a big deal if she dies. Lichte says they'll save Ferris's power for the Demon Lord. Now they just need to deal with these little insects. Doba says that Lichte seems to be underestimating them. One of Doba's assistants breaks past Lichte and goes to attack Ferris. The young man screams that the girl is finished. At that moment, Doba's second assistant, an archer, shoots an arrow straight at Ferris, and the first young man delivers multiple cutting blows with his blade. The girl falls unconscious. The young man smiles and says that Fairy is weak, and next time she will know how to invade someone else's territory. The boy runs towards Dabu, but suddenly dies from the same wounds as Ferris. Dabu sees this and says that they received exactly the same damage. He asks Lichte if this girl was able to repel their attack or if the attacks are repellent if someone wounds her. Doba says that it looks like he's right and it's clear that he killed Luluka. He says that who would have thought that she would get herself attacked. He begins to hit Lichte harder. However, suddenly his hands begin to shake and the sword falls out of his hands. The man does not understand what is happening and suddenly blood begins to flow from his eyes. The man falls to the floor. Lichte approaches Ferris and uses his resurrection ability. The girl opens her eyes and apologizes to the boy for her death. Lichte says that it is his fault that he could not protect her, because after all, 3 opponents at once are too much for him. At this time, Doba, who was still alive, asked the young man what he had done. He asked if the young man had really used a strong poison for which there was no antidote. Lichte is about to tell him, but he says that if he tells Dabu about it, he will report it to his demon lord. He sighs and says that he can hide it as long as he wants. Lichte realizes that Iris's fairies must have poisoned him. Iris says that the fairies arrived much later than she thought. Lichte says that they need to join Rose quickly. The girl says that she understands. At this moment, a girl bursts into the room of the demon Lord Gargi and says that she does not feel the soul of Lord Doba. Garga says he knows this and replies that things have taken an interesting turn. In the castle of the Eastern Demon Lord, Garga sat on the throne. Doba, the commander of the general's army, was dead. Luluku was also gone. This time the enemy came prepared. He thinks he's more worried about the fact that the other demon lord, Arya, isn't here. He needs to deal with the small insects first. He's realized over the past few hours that he's feeling the excitement of the battle ahead. Garga felt bored killing every adventurer who dared to conquer his castle. He had thoughts of trying to take over the world, but he found it too much trouble. And anyway, beating up the weak was not his style. Day after day, the demon lord felt bored and melancholy. Such peacemaking days did not suit his seething blood at all. Garga felt bored killing adventurers every time. Garga, who had too much free time, was offered an alliance. Instead of answering the letter, Garga decided to launch a magical attack. As expected after Garga's attack, his opponents responded in kind, thus causing hostility. Garga realized that he had finally found a suitable enemy for himself in the last 100 years. The girl asks the master if everything will be all right. If the demon lord is really being attacked by another demon lord, then perhaps it is the same one who died 100 years ago. Garga tells the girl not to worry. The great demon lord was buried 100 years ago, but she could not come back to life. He asks the girl to go and hide because she should not fight. The girl says that she will fight them too, so there is no need for the demon lord to say such things. Garga says that if the girl stays with him, what should they do next, because where is the guarantee that they will be useful? The girl says that maybe he is right. Garga asks her to wait. Suddenly, a swarm of bats appears right above them. The girl screams at the gentleman to take care of himself, but the mice begin to fly right at her, and then they completely envelop her body. Garga sat on the throne all this time and watched as the mice devoured the girl's body. He then notices that the girl's body has been taken over. She walks towards his throne and begins to howl. Garga remembers her smiling face and then uses the demonic cut and executes the girl by cutting off her head. Rose comes out to him and asks if he is being cruel to his servant, and then says that really, it is not for her to teach him. Garga looks at Rose and says that the vampire has come out. The girl says that her name is Rose. She also tells Garga that he will regret underestimating their demon lord. The man says he knows it. In any case, he wanted to fight her, not her protege. He says he'll deal with the girl quickly to relieve his boredom. He then looks at Rose and says that he realized that the girl also doesn't know where her demon lord is now. The girl says that Garga is just a bastard. Her fingers extend and attack the demon lord right next to his neck. He asks if the girl really thinks of turning him into her slave. She asks how he knows. Then she wonders if the demon Lord Garga can read minds. She wonders how he can be defeated. The girl continues to attack him. Garga asks if the girl is going to give up. He was right that today will be fun today. He says it was in Rose's best interest to simply wait for her demon lord to arrive. The girl continues to attack him and asks him to be quiet. At one point, the girl trips and falls. Garga says how about giving up already because he understands that Rose is not fighting at full strength. He says it's not in his interest to bully weaklings. Rose thanks him for his concern. The man steps right on the girl's body. He says that if she does not start fighting seriously, he will kill him. He asks not to upset him with such stupidity. The girl rises to her feet and says she understands. Then her eyes light up white and she transforms into a huge beast. Garga sees this monster and says that he will definitely be able to have fun now. He then thinks that he cannot read her thoughts because the girl acts solely on animal instincts. Rose attacks the man, but he repels her attack and grabs the monster by the neck. He pushes the monster away and tells it to disappear. He looks at his wound and says that the girl scratches just like a wolf. He uses his demonic slash ability and cuts off the monster's paw. Rose attacks the demon lord with her other paw, then sinks her fangs into the man's other arm. She injects him with venom with her fangs. Garga hisses and cuts off his own arm. He then uses his dark attack ability and hits Rose's fangs directly, causing them to break and sending Rose flying a long way. She has a hard time getting up and Garga says that it looks like the girl is finished. He decides to finish her off and attacks her right in the chest, killing the girl. He looks at the girl's corpse and says that she is a troublesome opponent. Suddenly Arya calls out to him and asks him if he had fun. Garga asks the girl when she got here. Arya replies that she has been here ever since he was playing with her rose. She says that Garga was so hot that she even got a little jealous. Garga tells the girl not to worry because that's just his manners. He doesn't look down on her, but the girl doesn't get involved in their fight. He wonders why. He looks at the wound on his only arm and thinks that he hopes that he will have enough strength to use only his right hand. Then he says he understands. The girl in front of him is the demon lord Arya. He says she has worthy servants, so the man is even jealous. The girl says she hasn't even introduced herself yet. Garga says that he knows that the girl is now preparing a magical attack. He asks the girl not to be shy and says that she can attack him with a calm heart. Arya frowns and asks not to say another word. Garga thinks that with this provocation he will try to weaken her attention a little and catch her off guard. He thinks that it should work even if he is dealing with a demon lord. Arya says that Garga should heal himself, then asks why she doesn't just use healing magic. Garga really thinks she will fight the boy when he is in such a state. She says she is not that tactless. The man uses the healing beam ability to heal himself. The girl asks if he is ready to begin. Garga goes to attack and uses his demonic slash ability. Arya smiles a wild smile and her eyes are shining. Arya uses her time-binding ability and everything around her freezes. The girl calmly approaches Garga. He asks what is happening and why time has slowed down. Arya says Garga doesn't need to ask. He should just know that she controls time and space. She decides to demonstrate to him how her ability works and cuts off Garga's finger. The man is surprised because he didn't even notice what happened. He thinks that the girl really did have the intention to cut off his finger because he felt it. In any other situation, he would have been able to dodge, but not now. Demon Lord Garga realizes that he can't even move. The attack is happening much faster than his thoughts. He can't even think of a counterattack because he doesn't even have a chance to dodge right now. He uses 2 spikes to attack, but the girl notices them in front of her face and says that he almost hit, and then slowly deviates to the side and the spikes fly past. Garga realizes that he tried to launch 2 spikes to pierce her eyes, thereby blinding her for a time. The man asks if the girl really fully anticipated his attack and dodged it. He says that she has quite powerful kinetic vision. Arya replies that it is not like that at all and that it is just the demon Lord Garga being weird. Arya asks if he really didn't realize that in this space he couldn't move as he wanted. Garga realizes that he is in slow motion. Arya says that the man has finally realized. If he can escape this space, they could have a decent one-on-one fight, but that is an impossible wish. He realizes that he died the moment he showed his back to the girl. Garga says that in that case, he will have to kill her right here. Arya says that's exactly it. The man uses his demonic slash ability. Arya thinks that Lichte and company will be here soon, so she should finish this because she doesn't want her charges to see this. The girl instantly appears behind the man and uses her abilities, destroying the young man's body piece by piece. Suddenly Lichte and Ferris enter the room. The young man asks if the battle is really over and so quickly. Arya says they're a bit late, it's all over. Lichte says he's glad everything's okay, then sees Rose dead. Lichte looks at the dead girl in horror. Arya asks what the young man is fussing about because he should resurrect her faster. The boy uses the ability to resurrect the dead. The girl regains consciousness when Arya strokes her face. Rose sees the demon lord Lichte and Ferris, then asks what happened and where the Eastern Demon Lord is. Arya hugs the girl and tells her to calm down because it's all over and the girl has defeated him. She says that the girl is great. Rose thanks her for the praise. Ferris says that Rose got to him first after all. Lichte says that, by the way, Arya defeated everyone else too. Arya says that Tis and company handled most of them. They are her best when it comes to taking down enemies. Arya asks Lichte how it went, since it looks like the enemy wasn't weak, even with Ferris' support. The young man replies that he didn't reveal her ability until the very end, but it seems he overdid it a bit. Arya notes his excellent foresight, but he would hardly have fooled the Eastern Demon Lord with this trick, because he would have known about this ability. Lichte asks if this is really the case. Arya tells him not to worry because it happens. She shouts that everyone is great and that they will throw a feast today. After some time, Rose calls Lichte and says that she brought a fish. The young man thanks her for this. Ferris asks him to help them too. That evening, they celebrated the victory over the Eastern Demon Lord and the revival of the Arya demon army. At one point, Dorothy calls Lichte and says that it is good that he tried in every sense today. The young man thanks her. He says he is terribly tired. Dorothy says it is obvious. Even though she was not in the castle, the screams could be heard even from the street. The young man replies that it is natural because they fought to the death. Dorothy says it's good that they won. She really didn't think it would be so hard for them to do it. The girl then asks Rose how strong this Eastern Demon Lord is. The girl replies that he was able to predict all of her attacks, so she was unable to do much damage to him but only suffered herself. Lichte says that he is strong. The boy then wonders how strong Arya is. Dorothy says to Lichte that if there was an Eastern Lord, there must have been a Western Lord. The boy says that there are rumors that a hero sealed him away long ago. The girl says that if they suddenly fight against him, then this time she wants to see everything live. She says that if Lichte goes against him, it will all be over very quickly. The young man is against this fight. At this time, Arya, who had already become cheerful, invited Lichte to come over and have a drink. Dorothy looked at the young man with hopeful eyes. The young man said that he would not fight against him and she should not even dream of it. After that, a drunken Arya pestered him, but that's a completely different story. After some time in the castle of the King of Men, the men made a report to him. They said that there was still no answer from the elves. They thought that one should not expect a positive outcome. The king says that apparently only humans can be trusted. He says that he doesn't want to, of course, but they will have to ask for help from the country of Lichte. This is also a good chance to improve their relations. The king is confident that they will not ignore this unknown dungeon. The men say that this is what the king would expect. The king says that in any case, they need to contact the king of Lichte. The servant suggests sending an ambassador in that case. The king says that Lichte is a rather closed country and they will most likely send the ambassador back. In that case, Lichte places great importance on adventurers. He suggests sending his adventurers. The king thinks about it. The servant asks for forgiveness and says that it was a bad idea. The king says that it is an interesting idea. The king continues and says that it would be nice to hear the adventurer's opinion about this country. Perhaps he could become their ambassador in building relations with Lichte. The man says that they will have to carefully select the adventurers then. It may take a long time. The second man says that they will start selecting them right now. The next day, Arya asks Lichte if he wants to go to the human world. Lichte didn't hear what the girl just said and asks her about it again. The girl says that there is one interesting place in the human world, so doesn't the young man want to go there? Lichte sadly says that there is an interesting place, okay, but it is that same terrible country. Arya does not understand why the young man behaves like this and then tells Lichte not to worry. She says it doesn't matter because that country has nothing to do with the boy anymore. He understands that Arya is talking about the country of Lichte. He tried many times to become an adventurer in that country, but all attempts were in vain. Rumors were circulating that almost all the adventurers from that country were high-class warriors, but they were unable to confirm this information. Lichte has bad memories of that country. He asks what is in that country that Arya is so interested in. The girl winks and says that she still can't believe it herself, but just in case she wants to check again. Is this the country of these people? Lichte says that he thinks so. Arya replies that the young man himself is not sure. Lichte asks if the girl wants to say that there is a possibility that the people of that country are actually demons. Arya says she's sorry to upset him. The boy asks why. Arya smiles and says because the people of the country there are people, but their king, their ruler, is actually a demon. Lichte is very surprised. He asks if the girl is trying to say that he is holding on to power by force. Arya replies that he is pretending to be human and living as if nothing had happened. She was very surprised when she saw it herself. Lichte wonders how this happened, because there is always a noticeable difference between humans and demons. If a demon decided to rule a country of humans, then surely there would be problems on his way. The young man says that it turns out that demons are able to adapt to people. Arya says that's why she's so interested, and the fact that the ruler of the country of Lichte is not a simple demon is a fact. She says that they will go there together, so the young man should not worry. She grabs his hand and says that they will fly. The girl asks to hold on to her hand tighter. After some time in the country of Lichte, a male servant approaches the lady and says that adventurers are asking for her help. She asks what the girl will order. The beautiful girl said that they will help them as much as they can. She says that they will use the food as much as they want, but she will think about the weapons. The servant girl says that Mrs. Byrne has made a wise decision. She says that the adventurers trust her very much. She is grateful to the Almighty that it is the lady who is their ruler. The girl says that she is glad that Anna is always by her side. The maid says that someone like her does not deserve her praise, so she will follow them all her life. The girl asks the girl not to lie so sweetly, but the maid says that she always thinks about her. The girl says that she was joking and she knows that the girl would never lie to them. The girl says that in that case she will have important work now, so the girl could not leave her alone. Every day, Byrne set aside 1 hour to be alone with herself. The girl told the servants that if something happened, they should call her. The girl took her leave. Suddenly, the girl is stopped by a maid and says that she wanted to ask something, namely why the country of Lichte has no connections or relationships with other countries. The girl says that it is because they do not want to break with tradition. because the distinguishing feature of Lichte is that it pays special attention to adventurers. She asks the maid because she wouldn't be happy if their number went down either. The maid agrees and says that Mrs. Byrne has thought of everything that way, and then she apologizes for the stupid question. The girl goes to her room. She flops down on the bed and says that she is very tired. She tosses and turns in bed and says that she has too many responsibilities. She thought being a queen would be fun, but it turned out to be so boring. She thought she could live peacefully in the human world. She also wonders why she saved them. Then the girl hears someone. It was Arya who told Lichte that they had arrived. Arya and Lichte burst into the girl's room. She asks them to give their names or she will call the guards. Arya laughs and says that this is not a demon who asks for a helping hand from people. Byrne realizes that she has been found out. Lichte asks Arya if she is sure that this girl is definitely a demon, since he only sees a human in front of him. Arya says that this girl has been deceiving people like Lichte all this time. Bert doesn't understand what Arya is talking about, and then she asks the girl how she knew who she really was, and how they got here in the first place. Arya shows her aura and Byrne is scared out of fear. Suddenly smoke forms around Byrne, and then she develops ears and a tail. Arya says that the girl has a tail and that she thought Byrne was a fox. Lichte realizes that Byrne is not human. Arya said that she said so. Arya aims at Byrne's tail and says that, by the way, the tail is very impressive. She starts to pet him and Byrne, blushing, asks her not to do that. She tells Arya not to even think that she will get away with it. She says that she is a noble fox. Arya smiles and says that she is actually a demon lord. Byrne freezes and looks at Arya, then says that she is deceiving her for no reason. Arya asks Lichte to close his eyes. Then she snaps her fingers and Lichte is torn apart, his body simply disappearing into space. Byrne sees this and freezes in horror. Lichte is dead. Arya asks if the girl can see now. She screams and asks the girl not to do this because this guy was her partner. She wonders why he had to be killed because it was too much. At that moment, Lichte's magic is activated. He comes back to life and asks why he had to be killed. Byrne screams in horror. Arya asks Lichte if he was in pain. The young man says that it's not about that at all. Byrne asks Arya who they are and if Arya is really a demon lord. The girl says that's how she introduced herself from the beginning. She then says that the truth is that Lichte is human. Byrne thinks that Arya's bloodthirstiness and power suppression, as well as lightning attack, are very unusual and no matter how much she compares, she will not find an equal. The girl bows to Arya and says that she offers her deepest apologies for her behavior. She asks for forgiveness and calls Arya her mistress. Arya smiles and says that Byrne is quite smart because she thought of merging with people. Lichte tells Arya that she is amazing, and she asks what he expected from her since she is a demon lord. Suddenly the maid turns to Mrs. Byrne and says that she heard some strange sounds, and then asks if something happened to the girl. Byrne says that everything is fine, so she cannot worry and return to work. Anna says that she understands everything, and if something happens, Byrne can always call her. Arya says that she almost forgot why they came here. She looks at Byrne and asks why the girl merged with humans. The girl lowers her ears and says that she thought that vessel could live in the human world, but in reality, everything turned out differently. Arya says that she is amazed that the girl became a queen only because of such foolish motives. The girl expresses her gratitude to Arya, calling her mistress. Arya asks Byrne if it is difficult to live in the human world. Byrne gives a positive answer. She says she never thought queens would get so tired. Arya says even a fool can understand that rulers have a hard job. However, she was surprised. Arya knew that some demons merge with people, but this is the first time she has seen a queen. Arya then asks if her teammates are hiding somewhere. Byrne says she thinks there are those in this country who hide from humans. She says that's just the kind of race they are. Lichte says he didn't notice it at all. Arya says that she wants to have connections with the human world, so would Byrne like to be her friend? The girl asks if that is really possible. Arya replies that it is possible and foxes are a rare species. She asks if Lichte is okay with it. The boy says he is okay with it. He can't wrap his head around the idea of a demon lord having relationships with humans. Byrne tells them not to think so, but she feels nothing for humans, so she would never betray the demons. She asks if it's not too much trouble for Arya, could she guarantee her safety? Arya says that Byrne cannot worry about it and rely on her. Finally, the negotiations were over. Byrne then turns to Lichte and asks why he didn't die from the demon lord's attack. Arya says that Lichte has an ability called resurrection of the dead. He can resurrect dead creatures and people. As the girl has already noticed, he can resurrect himself too. Arya also says that if Byrne dies, he can instantly resurrect her, so she can be grateful in advance. The girl is surprised and says that it turns out to be like immortality. For Byrne, the guarantee of life looks much more attractive than any treasure, and after many years of dreaming about an eternal, joyful life. Finally, her dreams have come true. Arya waves her hand and says that next time she will come and taste something delicious. Anna enters the room and asks Byrne what happened, because she heard some strange sounds. Byrne says there is no need to worry about it. The girl says that she is the mistress's servant, and as a person she worries about her. Byrne smiles. Anna says that they look pleased, and because of this she now feels happy too. Byrne asks Anna to come closer. He asks the girl what she thinks about this country. The girl says that it is a wonderful country. There are many good people and adventurers here, and the most important thing is that this country is ruled by Mrs. Byrne. Byrne calls Anna a good girl and then strokes her head. She says that Anna's hair is a little bit sticking out and then asks her to hand her a comb. Then Byrne combs the girl's hair and asks her what she thinks, not about the country, but about Byrne. Anna smiles and says that Mrs. Byrne is a wonderful person who takes care of her, so she respects her more than anyone in the world. Byrne smiles and asks if she becomes a demon, will the girl follow her? Anna replies that she will definitely follow her. Thus, Lichte and Arya learned that the Queen of Lada country was actually a fox demon. By showing her power as a demon lord, Arya made herself be repaired and built a friendly relationship with Lada country. A couple of days later, a messenger from a neighboring country arrived in the country of Lada. The servant says that they have always driven away messengers before, but this one is asking at all costs to meet with the ruler of the country. Until now, the country of Lada had openly refused to have anything to do with other nations. This was due to the fact that Byrne was afraid of exposing her true appearance. Byrne asked the servant if the messenger had given details. The man answered in the affirmative. The messenger said that it would be about a previously unknown dungeon. Byrne was surprised. The servant continued and said that the dungeons also emit magic of such power that it cannot be ignored. The adventurers are now also talking about it. The girl curses. The servant asks about what the girl just said. The girl covers her mouth with her sleeve and says that she didn't say anything. Byrne thought that this dungeon must be dystopia, that is, the dungeon of the demon lord, and in that case the neighboring country is their enemy. The servant asked Byrne what she had decided. He said that of course they could have refused, but perhaps they would help them clear out this dungeon. Byrne understands that if they refused, things would get worse at this rate. She also thinks that in another case it would be better to kill all the adventurers of the neighboring country, then the demon lord might praise her. The girl says that she will meet with this messenger. Anna asks the lady if it is worth it to just go to meet him, and what will happen if the messenger is dangerous. The girl says that she is worried about the lady. Byrne says that everything is fine. She says that even if the messenger attacks her, she will easily defeat him, and in her head she thinks that human adventurers are just a piece of cake for her. Anna is happy and says that everything is as expected from the mistress. Byrne asks if Anna can save her if she needs help. The girl clenches her fists and says that the lady can count on her. Byrne covers his face with his sleeve and says what will happen if she just sends the adventurers straight into the dungeon, and Ms. Arya clears them out herself. The messenger enters the back and joyfully says that he is very grateful to meet Her Highness. He says that he is an envoy from the neighboring country of Lesaga and also an adventurer. S-rank named Gate. The girl greets the young man and introduces herself, stating her name Byrne. The girl says that her servant has already reported the approximate gist of the conversation to her. She asks if the man wanted to discuss the unknown dungeon with her. The young man is happy and says that everything is exactly like that. He is glad that it will not take her much time. Byrne asks if they really plan to enlist the help of his state. The young man laughs and says that Byrne really does see right through him. He says that they sent 4 of their adventurers there earlier, but none of them returned. Gate says that there is probably a monster in this dungeon. If left as is, he fears that danger will await not only the human world, but the entire Earth as a whole. He says that at the moment many adventurers are discussing this dungeon, and he, as one of them, can assure the girl of this. Byrne asks Mr. Gate if he is an adventurer. The young man says that he has been working as one for many years, but he feels that this case is unique. Considering the strength of the adventurers who did not return, it would be expected that something like a demon lord would live in this dungeon. It is said that there has been activity in the area of the Eastern Demon Lord recently. Byrne asks if the boy means to say that there is a demon lord in dystopia. In that case, it is a very difficult opponent. Gate says that if this is truly a demon lord, he would not mind defeating him at the cost of his life. There is a sword in Lesaga that increases in sharpness proportional to the damage it deals you. If you make the most of it, you can probably compete with the demon lord. Byrne thinks that even if that's the case, Lady Arya has Lichte, who can easily resurrect her. Although even this Gate won't be able to lay a finger on her. Byrne says that in that case she can rely on Gate because she can trust his eyes. She says that she will provide them with some of her adventurers, even though there may be casualties. The man is very happy. He bows to her, hitting his forehead on the table, and says that he is very grateful to Queen Byrne. The girl asks when they plan to attack the dungeon. The man says that preparations on their part have already been made. He says they can move out as Queen Byrne orders. The girl says she will need a little time to prepare their fighters. The girl asks if this arrangement suits the man. Gate replies that everything is fine. He himself has spent a long time selecting adventurers who will fight side by side. Byrne thinks that he will use the allotted time to report the entire conversation to Lady Arya. Gate says he's counting on Queen Byrne's help and swears they'll definitely return victorious. The girl giggles and says she can't wait. Meanwhile, in Dystopia, Lichte was approached by Dorothy and asked where he got the fruit from. The young man replied that he had received a gift from Iris and Tis when he came to visit them. He says he won't eat it all, so he'll share it with the girl. The girl says he figured it out quickly. In that case, she suggests he eat it together because she won't eat it all by herself. Dorothy says that enemies don't come after all. Her ghosts are scouting the area, so she doesn't have much to do. At first, they carefully walked around the entire dungeon, but there were no enemies anywhere, so lately they have no work at all. Lichte says that on the other hand, this dungeon was originally monster-free. Lichte, on the contrary, likes to live in peace. The girl says that she also likes a quiet life. Constant battles can quickly tire you out. Dorothy even thinks that while they are resting, Rose does everything for them. The girl says she wanted to help Rose recently, but she said everything was fine and refused. Dorothy thought it was some kind of work that they couldn't do. Lichte says that Dorothy is a vampire, so he has no idea what kind of work there might be. Dorothy even suggests that Rose is avoiding them. This upsets her. Lichte says that Rose is not the type to hate them so easily, so he asks Dorothy not to worry. The girl asks if Lichte has really become that friendly with her. The young man answers that he is not sure himself, but perhaps she does not like him. Lichte says he has a good relationship with Fairy. Dorothy calls Fairy strange and says she hasn't really talked to her. By the way, she doesn't really leave her room. The girl asks if she can come in. Lichte says that she thinks she has a lot of free time lately, so Dorothy might drop by and Ferris would be happy about it. The next moment, Arya bursts into the room, kicking down the doors. She rejoices and shouts that people are gathering to cleanse Dystopia, so everyone should get ready. Lichte becomes visibly nervous and then asks if the humans are really going to attack them. Arya replies that she feels like they are just going to their deaths. The girl says that according to proper information, they intend to destroy Dystopia. Lichte is surprised and asks if humans really don't know fear at all. He then asks the girl where she got this information from. Arya replies that Byrne reported everything to her. Apparently, Lesaga's country decided to enlist her help. Lichte says that Legaz's country is very persistent. Apparently, Lichte has not yet managed to completely forget about the country that expelled him. Arya, meanwhile, says that, unfortunately, she has not yet managed to find out the exact number of enemy troops, so she asks Lichte, because he should know something because he used to live there himself. Lichte thinks and says that even though the girl says so, all he knows is that there are very few female adventurers there. Arya asks Dorothy and says that maybe the girl knows something. The girl apologizes and says that she was there too long ago, and it is difficult for her to remember useful information. Arya says that in that case there is nothing to be done, so she asks the girl not to worry. Lichte asks why Dorothy is getting special treatment and not him. Arya says that in any case victory is theirs, so they should not worry. Byrne will be working on the timing adjustments for the Dystopia invasion. Lichte asks if she's really going to do that. He notes that she's so immersed in her role as queen. Arya says that's all, then asks Lichte and Dorothy to be ready. If they were planning on trying something new in battle, now would be the time. The girl goes to bed. Dorothy offers Lichte to test the very bazooka she told him about. The young man says he refuses and then bids Arya goodnight, but suddenly remembers that it is still daytime. Dorothy says that they are demons, which means that their life rhythm is completely different. Dorothy says that the demon lord is probably most active at night. Arya interrupts them and says that for her, day and night simply work in reverse. Dorothy apologizes to Lichte. Lichte tells Arya to try to establish a healthy lifestyle. Dorothy says that everything ended up being pinned on them. Lichte tells her that they need to round up everyone else first. Sometime later in the Batcave in the chambers, Rose meets Lichte and says that she made coffee for him. She asks if Dorothy will like black coffee. Dorothy agrees and thanks Dorothy. Lichte thanks the girl too and says that she shouldn't serve them like that. Rose says coffee tastes especially good after a long day at work. Lichte says he constantly wonders if the girl is working too much and refusing help. Tis says that since there will be many opponents, wouldn't it be better for them to act as usual? She asks what Mr. Lichte thinks. The young man answers that it is exactly like that and the girls will act as usual because it will be better that way. Iris tells her sister that it's easy and they'll try their best. Tis agrees with Iris and says that the main thing is not to oversleep the most important thing. The girl replies that it's difficult, but she'll make an effort. Suddenly Lichte notices Rashta trembling and says that she will receive orders personally from the demon Lord Arya. The girl rejoices and asks if this is really true. Lichte says that judging by everything, the girl will be on reconnaissance. Rose clenches her fists and says that the demon lord has hopes for her, so she needs to live up to his expectations. Iris tells Rose to try hard because they are rooting for her. The girl thanks Iris and says that she will do her best. The girls ask Fairy what the girl will do and ask if she is back on the team with Lichte. The girl cuddles up to the young man and says that everything is exactly like that, because she and Lichte have a common destiny. Tis says that, judging by everything, Fairies has become very attached to Mr. Lichte. The young man asks Tis not to joke like that, and Dorothy, meanwhile, mutters something under her breath. Tis turns to Dorothy and asks her to try too. The girl is embarrassed and says that it is exactly like that. Tis stands up and says that since the roles have been assigned, it is time to return to their places. She thanks Rose for the coffee and says that it was very tasty. The girl thanks Tis for the praise. Iris unwraps it and says that the apple tea was very tasty and asks Rose to treat her to it again next time. Rose waves and thanks Iris for the praise. Lichte says that they should go too. Rose asks what she should do then. She thinks that perhaps it would be better to set traps. Lichte asks Rose to rest and he will do all the work himself. He says that Ferris will help too. The girl says that the young man deceived her. Sometime later, Tis and Iris were relaxing in their new treehouse, which Rose had apparently built for them. Tis wakes up Iris and asks her to wake up. The girl opens her eyes and then rubs them with her little hands. Iris asks to sleep for 5 more minutes. Tis says that this is not possible because if they are late, Rose will be very angry. Iris stands up and Tis calls her a smart girl. Iris jumps off the bed and summons a troop of fairies. Tis asks if her sister is sleepy. Iris says she is a little sleepy but should be fully awake soon. Tis says it is because she has been staying up late. She suggests that Iris climb on top of her so Tis can carry her. Tis says that Iris has gained a little weight, but the girl replies that if she says one more word and the girl gets angry, Iris suggests that her sister hurry up. Iris says that the enemy is already advancing. Tis smiles and says that everything is fine because Rose will hold them off at the exit, and Lichte and the others are already nearby. The girl says that their time will come after this. She says that most likely the remaining troops went down a side road, and Iris had already sent her fairies there. She says that the fairies she sent to the entrance have a beast effect. If the opponents have no resistance to it, they will start attacking each other. Tis says that in that case, there should be a bloodbath at the exit now. At one point, Iris says that one of her fairies has died. There are quite skilled warriors in the army detachment. Tis says that's all they can do for now. She hopes that Mr. Lichte and the others are okay. Tis says that they need to hurry. At this time, people attacked each other and did not understand why they were doing this, because they were allies. At this time, Rose dealt with one adventurer after another. The warriors were scared and said that a real monster was in front of him. Rose smiled sweetly. Suddenly, one of the warriors began to feel unwell. The next moment he stood up and began to attack his former comrade. He pushes the man away and asks if this vampire bit him. The man thinks that his former ally is different from all the others who went berserk. Even if he is the same, he is very aggressive. The man has never seen anything like this before. He cuts off his ally's head and asks what's going on, and if he's been infected with rabies too. Suddenly, a shining sphere appears from the body of the fallen warrior. Suddenly, Rose appears behind the man and says that he has finished off her puppet. The man ducks and asks when the vampire managed to get there so fast. The girl says there are too many of them, the humans. Some even managed to break through to dystopia. She asks the man for reinforcements, but he raises his sword and orders Rose to be quiet. The girl deftly dodges and asks what about reinforcements. The man says how would he know about that? Rose suddenly approaches and asks seriously if reinforcements are coming or not. The man chuckles and says he'll leave it to the girl's imagination. Rose says she's realized they won't be coming back. In that case, she can leave this place. The man realized that if this continued, they would be dead. If he lost now, the girl would surely kill all those who had passed through. The human troops were strong, but they had no chance against this monster. Rose says that Iris and Tis will deal with the people and that she can go on. The man orders her to stop. Rose asks what he wants. The man tells her not to dare ignore her opponent because she is destined to die. The girl says that she feels the opposite, that a man will die today. A glowing sphere penetrates his body. Suddenly his whole body shook and he fell to his knees, his eyes clouded over. Rose sighs because the man is no longer a tenant. Lichte and Ferris were walking through the tunnels of dystopia. Suddenly they saw people in the distance. Lichte realized that they had gotten inside. The boy asks the girl to be on guard. Ferris replies that she understands. The girl asks if the boy can fight one-on-one. Lichte replies that he can do it. After all, he was an S-rank adventurer, so he thinks it won't be difficult to defeat a normal soldier. Suddenly, Ferris asks to look at the man in front. It was Gate. Lichte says that he had seen this soldier before. His name was Gate. Ferris asks if this man is famous for anything. Lichte says that he is famous in the circle of people. Lichte thinks that who would have thought that he would meet him here. An S-rank adventurer who rose to the top and is now the right hand of the human country and has medals for various merits that only 3 people in the entire country have received. It would not be an exaggeration to say that everyone in Lesage knows him. If you compare him to Lichte, Lichte is just a small fish and Gate is a shark. Lichte turns to Ferris. The girl says she understands. She steps forward. Gate wonders what this little girl is doing here. It is also strange that she approaches him completely unarmed. The girl asks if the boy will come closer. Ferris tuts to herself. Then she pulls a dagger from under her skirt and attacks Gate directly. Gate thinks she's aiming for the heart, but she's actually aiming for the gun. Gate kicks the girl and knocks the weapon out of her hands with his foot. He twists her arms and wonders what's wrong with her because she's too weak. He turns to Lichte and asks what the guy is up to here. Why does he say that he has seen him somewhere before? He says that Lichte is a man and then asks what he is doing here. Then he asks the young man to give his name, but Lichte replies that who knows. He grabs the dagger that Ferris dropped and heads straight for the man. Gate snatches his dagger and grabs his arm. He says he has a question for both of them, so he will make them answer all the questions. Gate takes a rope and ties up Lichte and Ferris. Lichte asks Ferris if she is okay, and the girl answers in the affirmative. Gate takes the dagger and says he has his first question, then stabs Lichte in the shoulder. He asks the first question and says what this place is. He was supposed to be at the entrance to the dungeon, but at some point he ended up here. The second question he asks is who Ferris and Lichte are. He pays special attention to Lichte and says that he has seen him before in their country. He demands to know why the boy is there. Then Gate suggests that the boy is in pain and has no time for his questions. He says that if he were a normal person, he would be vomiting from the pain and begging him to stop. Then he says that he really overdid it because Ferris is also silent. He smiles and says that a normal girl would have burst into tears long ago if only they would leave her alone. He turns to Ferris and says that she has a question for her, so he is giving her time. He grabs her hair and thinks that she has gone crazy because of fear. He asks Ferris if she can hear him. Ferris turns to look at him with a terrifying gaze. Gate lets go of her hair and then yells at her to answer his question, and he asks Lichte who he is. Then Rose bursts into the room and shouts the names of Lichte and Ferris. Rose screams that Gate is finished now, and then she charges and kicks the man in the chin. Lichte is surprised that Gate is now paralyzed. Rose was able to defeat him with one blow. The girl rushes to Lichte and says that she was very worried. Lichte asked the girl to untie the rope. Rose starts to cry and says, apologizing, that she didn't make it in time and that it was because of her that he was injured. She says that the demon lord ordered her to check on Lichte, but she was too slow. The young man says that everything is fine now, so he asks the girl to calm down and untie them. After some time, Ferris apologizes to Lichte for being completely useless. The young man asks the girl not to take it to heart, because he was the one who couldn't do anything. The girls then notice Lichte's wound. Ferris tells them to go to her room and she will treat the wound. Rose tells Lichte that she will take them there. The girl throws the boy onto her back and tells him not to worry. She has already cleared out all the other enemies. Lichte asks if the girl really doesn't need to stay here any longer. Rose replies that the bats told her that they no longer hear human sounds. Fairy says that's not interesting. At this point, Arya says that as she thought, Iris and Tis have already done everything for her. She walks down the corridor, which is filled with corpses. The girl says that there are too many people and cleaning will be quite difficult. Suddenly, someone grabs her leg. She immediately uses her time-binding ability and then lifts the man by the hand and says that he is already dead, and she had really hoped. However, since so many died at once, it is unlikely that they will attack again anytime soon. Then the girl leaves and says that she has a great idea to give everyone a vacation. After the battle ends and Rose rescues Lichte and Ferris from captivity, Arya, the demon lord, decides to give all 3 of them a vacation. The heroes are sitting in the headquarters in the middle of the sea and discussing the good news about the vacation over lunch. Lichte is genuinely surprised that Arya decided to give it to them. He is very pleased that he can now relax. Rose listens to him attentively. Lichte asks Rose how many days she will have off, to which the girl replies that her vacation will last 4 days. The young man says that he will also rest for 4 days and remarks that the girl should have asked for a longer vacation. Rose blushes a little and asks Lichte to listen to her. Lichte asks in surprise what happened. You can tell from his face that the hero does not know what words to expect from his interlocutor. Suddenly Rose says she would like to fly home for the holidays. After these words, silence reigns in the dining room. Lichte is very surprised to hear the word home from Rose. The young man asks again if he heard it right when he heard this word, to which the girl says that he understood everything correctly. The hero finds it very difficult to believe that Rose just said the word home. He remembers that he has never heard her say it before. Lichte gently reminds Rose that she has been dead for 100 years and that her home may no longer exist. Rose says that she understands this, but adds that she wants to check if this is true. Rose also adds that for vampires, 100 years is not such a big number, since they live quite a long time. The girl excitedly says that she is sure that her parents are alive. Lichte is a little surprised and does not know how to answer. Lichte continues to speak confidently. He shares with the girl that it would be very good if this were true, since they would certainly be happy after so many years of separation. Rose is even more inspired by this speech. Rose collects her thoughts and suddenly says that she would like to invite the hero to visit, which surprises him greatly, and he immediately does not know what to answer. Lichte's expression reflects genuine surprise and confusion. He asks the girl why she invites him to visit. Rose sheepishly explains that since Lichte resurrected her, she is now in his debt. The girl also adds that she decided to introduce the boy to her mother and father. Rose feels awkward. She waits a bit and without waiting for an answer asks to find out if she can't do it. For the first few seconds, Lichte doesn't know what to say either. He answers, a little confused, that in general it's possible. The young man modestly and a little scared says that he hopes that there is no anger in Rose's parents, since he imagines them as not the kindest guys. The girl happily says that he should not worry about it. Rose speaks enthusiastically of her confidence in the kindness of her parents. She states without hesitation in her voice that they will give Lichte the warmest welcome. Lichte breathes a sigh of relief. It seems to him that after this information it has become much easier. He thanks the girl. Lichte cautiously asks if he is the only one invited to the party. Rose awkwardly replies that she has also invited Dorothy to the house. The girl says that she plans to fly home the next morning, and she asks Lichte if that's okay, to which he replies that it's fine. He also asks Rose not to stay up too late before going to bed. Rose, embarrassed and a little indignant, replies that she is not Iris to do such things. The next morning, Lichte, Dorothy, and Rose fly to the latter's home, carried by small bats attached to the children's backs. Lichte dejectedly asks Rose if there is no other way to get there. Dorothy responds in surprise that if they were to travel to their destination by land, it would take much longer than flying. Lichte quietly says that he understands, but there is some displeasure in his voice. Dorothy, humming something, remarks that Lichte is simply afraid of heights, and that if he gets used to it, the boy will fly much easier. Lichte notes with displeasure that she has gotten used to flying somehow suspiciously quickly. Dorothy decides to change the subject and suggests talking about something else. Lichte asks what you can even talk about on a flight. The girl, looking at the other, replies that she would like to know more information about Rose's childhood. Lichte adds that he would also be interested in learning more about it. Rose smiles and modestly answers that she cried a lot as a child. She remembers how her mom and dad always spoiled her because of this. She clearly remembers a lot after the question and looks thoughtfully into the distance. Lichte notes that he also remembers the last time Rose cried, and that it was very recently. The girl is very embarrassed and says that it was because Lichte was very badly injured. As they fly and talk, Rose notices that, unlike her, Dorothy never seems to cry. In response, the other girl says that she used to cry often because of the mentor who took her as an apprentice when she was a child. Dorothy also says that now she and her mentor remember this time with a smile, as these memories have long since become warm for both of them. Lichte says that it seems to him that the girl had a very difficult time before. After this, Dorothy also adds that they soon rebelled against the kingdom and were killed. This ending to the story confuses Lichte, and he asks why this story is considered funny. Lichte interrupts Dorothy and says that he heard a story that Dorothy died while involved in an enraged fight with demons, to which she replies that the story is not true and that she was in fact attacked while she was sleeping. Lichte says, dejectedly and a little frightened, that Dorothy's story is a real horror. Suddenly, Rose decides to change the topic of conversation to something more pleasant and carefree. She asks the guys what animals they like. The girl says to herself that she likes dogs. Suddenly, Dorothy notices that Rose is very much like a dog in the truest sense of the word. The girl gives an example of how Rose fawns over Arya and is very happy when she is praised. Rose, not knowing what to say, calls Dorothy a cat, explaining that she always has secret thoughts that are not easy to guess. Dorothy, puzzled, asks if this was a compliment. The flight continued for a few more minutes, until finally Rose noticed something on the ground and pointed at it with her finger. The heroes look down and see a huge white castle beneath them. Rose happily declares that they have finally reached her home. Lichte and Dorothy's surprise and delight are very difficult to describe in words. They cannot believe that they are seeing such a building, which, moreover, is their friend's house. Lichte thinks to himself that Rose might be a famous lady among vampires. He calls Dorothy's name and she responds. Rose looks at the huge castle and is sincerely glad that everything is okay with her home. The girl says that she is so happy about this news that it takes her breath away. The heroes land on the ground after a long and tiring flight on bats. Rose is the first to approach the castle door, as this is her home. Lichte and Dorothy exchange uncertain glances. Rose, full of inspiration, throws open the doors, sparing no effort, and enters the building. A crowd of surprised maids immediately gathers around the girl. They exclaim that they find it hard to believe that Madame Rose has returned. The maids can't hold back their tears. They smile, wipe away the little drops in the corners of their eyes, and repeat their mistress's name over and over again. Rose can't help but smile. She places her right hand over her heart and apologizes for making the girls worry. The girl comes closer to the maids and says that she would very much like to meet her parents again. They fuss and answer that they will immediately take her to her father and mother. Dorothy remarks that she and Lichte seem out of place here. The young man tells her that at such moments one must maintain a good mood. They must not behave inappropriately, otherwise they will be considered country people. Lichte is already a country person. Rose turns her head to Lichte and asks if everything is okay, to which the young man says that he did not want to make her worry and asks for forgiveness. One of the maids interrupts the dialogue between Rose and Lichte. She politely invites the girl to go with her to her parents. Finally, Rose and her friends come to a huge wooden door taller than a man and stop. The maid prepares to open it. One of the castle's many doors creaks open in front of Lichte, Rose, and Dorothy. The boys see Rose's parents in front of them. A tall, dark-haired, bearded father with a monocle and a beautiful, short, fair-haired woman, the mother, whom her daughter looks very much like. They exclaim that they are very happy to see Rose again. The happy girl runs up to her parents. They can't believe that they see their beloved daughter alive, which makes them incredibly happy. The father leans over to Rose and happily tells her that in honor of her return, they will throw a grand dinner fan, consisting only of the girl's favorite dishes. She happily replies that she is very glad to hear this. Rose says she was a bit busy and couldn't tell her parents about her resurrection right away. She adds that she was finally able to return home because she had enough time to do so. Suddenly, Rose's father notices the girl's friends behind her back. He asks if Lichte and Dorothy are his daughter's guests. Mom is indescribably delighted when she hears about Rose's friends. Her amazement, mixed with happiness, is very difficult to convey in words. Rose's mother says she finds it hard to believe that her daughter has finally become so independent, and she feels incredibly happy about it. Lichte watches the family reunion closely. He doesn't know how to handle such situations, so he says nothing. Rose says that she owes a lot to these guys. The father happily says that his daughter's guests can feel at home in the castle. He also adds that it is worthwhile to greet the guests properly. Rose's mother modestly and sweetly suggests that Lichte and Dorothy live with their family, as in this case they will be able to see their daughter every day, which would be very good. The father tells his wife that it is a good idea, but first they need to hear their story. Rose blushes and asks her mother to wait for something, to which she replies that her daughter does not need to continue the sentence, since she already understood everything. The girl is genuinely surprised that her mother understood her at a half-word. The mother laughs kindly at her daughter's reaction. Lichte thinks that the parents pamper Rose too much, but he decides to keep quiet about it. Dorothy, Lichte, Rose, and her parents finally find themselves sitting together at the sumptuously laid dinner table. The first two are very surprised by this. Dorothy turns to Lichte and says that the food on the table looks like a work of art and it is a pity to touch it. The young man suggests that his friend just sit silently and do not touch anything, as this is the best thing they can do. The father hears the girl addressing her friend by name. He asks again if he has the correct name, having first said it. Rose's parents decide to introduce themselves to their friends. It turns out that the father's name is Alias, and his wife, Rose's mother, is called Camilla. Camilla says that she is very happy to meet her daughter's friends, to which they say that the feeling is mutual. Camilla notes that Rose seems to be in Lichte's debt. She recalls that her daughter once served the demon lord, so the boy must be her comrade in service. Lichte confirms this. Alias asks how his daughter is coping with her daily life. He adds that he hopes everything is going smoothly. Rose says that she shouldn't ask her friends about it, as such questions are embarrassing. While Dorothy is ready to give out some information, Lichte still doesn't know what to say. Rose looks at the young man with hope. Lichte says with dignity and confidence that Rose copes with absolutely any job perfectly. She always carries out any assignments, and therefore her partners love and respect the girl very much. Camilla, barely holding back tears, says that her daughter is truly perfect, and she is very touched by this. Alias compliments her words, saying that they had no reason to worry and that strict upbringing gave results. Lichte is surprised by the word strict. Camilla asks in bewilderment why her daughter returned home only after 100 years, and says that it was possible to contact the family in any other way, because everyone was worried about the girl. Rose collects her thoughts. Finally, she answers that the real reason she was gone was because Rose had been dead for so long. The parents are genuinely surprised by such words, and ask what they mean if she is now sitting in front of them alive. Rose replies that something unknown killed her 100 years ago, and her remains lay in the depths of the dungeon for a long time until Lichte resurrected them. Camilla does not find sense in her daughter's words. She cannot believe that her daughter was killed by someone and then resurrected by a young man. Rose's mother also adds that no one can resurrect a vampire, and Rose should know this. Rose proudly says that such a person does exist, and his name is Lichte. She also does not forget to mention that he was able to resurrect the demon lord. Camilla and Alias can't believe it. For many years they were sure of the exact opposite. Rose's father is in shock. He doesn't want to believe that his daughter was dead for 100 years until she was resurrected by an unknown person. Rose calmly says that he understood everything correctly, but makes it clear that there is nothing to worry about since she is alive now. Lichte understands how difficult it is for Rose's parents to accept the fact that she died suddenly and had been dead for 100 years. He exchanges a glance with Dorothy, but she remains silent. While there is an awkward silence in the king's room, Alias thinks that he will definitely find and kill the person who did this to his daughter. He also does not know what he should do with the person who resurrected her. Alias remembers feeling a familiar sensation. He felt the same when he met the demon lord. He remembers that the demon lord once wanted to take his daughter, Rose, as her servant. Father Rose goes deep into his thoughts. Suddenly, he realizes that Lichte is also serving the demon lord. Suddenly, a slightly unusual but quite logical from Alias's point of view, thought comes to his mind to marry his daughter and Lichte. Father Rose pulls himself away from such thoughts, considering them too hasty conclusions. He turns to Lichte and says that he does not know how he can thank the young man. Alias decides to think about how he can thank the young man. He understands that it will take a decent amount of time, so he asks Lichte to wait. The young man replies that there is nothing wrong with that. Dinner with the family finally takes place after 100 years. Alias notes that the conversation has become too heavy, so it is better to replace it with food. He encourages the guests not to be shy and to start eating. The guests and Rose's parents are still sitting at the set table. Alias turns to Lichte and asks his forgiveness for the fact that the young man had to go so far. The hero replies that there is no need to apologize for this, because he himself does not see anything terrible in this situation. Father Rose, holding a glass in his hand, calmly says that he never ceases to be amazed when listening to the young man's story. Alias says that he finds it very difficult to believe that Lichte was able to resurrect not only the demon lord, but others as well. Lichte, hearing about the demon lord, decides to ask how Rose met Arya in the first place. Alias replies that it seemed to him that vampires and demons almost never got along with each other, and were always enemies. Father Rose says he will never forget the day he met the demon lord. He also says that their entire family is indebted to Arya. The man recalls how the Rose family was then surrounded by more than 100 vampire hunters. Alias and Camilla fought as best they could, but were unable to do so for long. Rose's parents begged the hunters to at least spare their daughter, but they did not want to listen to the vampires. Hearing this, the hunters began to specifically target and attack Rose. Lichte realizes that this is probably when the demon lord came to his aid, and Alias confirms his assumption. The man recalls that as the hunters continued to attack Rose, the demon lord suddenly appeared behind them. At first, Rose's parents thought that she was joining their enemies, but suddenly Arya began to attack the hunters. Lichte, hearing this story, says that he understands Arya. He seems very sincere when he says this. Alias continues to speak. He remembers what the demon lord looked like. Father Rose says that suddenly Arya did something unusual. The man says he remembers how suddenly, in one moment, all the hunters were lying dead on the ground. The whole area was littered with bodies. Alias says that the entire family was very surprised that the demon lord saved her opponents, the vampires. He adds that he did not know what Arya's intentions were. The man says that after this incident, the demon lord became a real hero for little Rose. The puzzle begins to fit together in Lichte's mind, and he understands why Rose is so devoted to and respectful of Arya at this moment. The boy decides to ask what happened after the demon lord fought off the hunters and saved Rose's family. Alias replies that they thanked Arya, of course. To this, as Alias remembers, the demon lord responded by asking for one favor in return for her help. She wanted Rose to become her comrade. Lichte says that such an action really suits Arya. Alias continues, saying that he and Camilla were worried since it was their only daughter that was being discussed, but Rose bowed to Arya and agreed to be her comrade. Lichte thinks with peace that the demon lord was able to discern talent in little Rose. The man says that the family has always respected Rose's choice, so no one objected to her decision. He also adds that he still considers the family's decision to be correct. The young man confirms this with a smile on his face. Alias decides to ask how Lichte is connected to the demon lord, and mentions that he remembers that humans have always been at odds with demons. Lichte's face immediately darkens after the question. He is silent for a short time and soon answers that his act is revenge on people. The man is genuinely surprised by this answer. Lichte says that he hasn't even told Arya about the motive for his actions. The young man explains that he cannot forgive humans after they so mercilessly drove Lichte out of his world. Lichte says confidently that he will not back down from his people under any circumstances. His face radiates pure confidence. Alias realizes that Lichte's reason for helping the demon lord was indeed compelling. The man decides to ask the boy if he can help him, but he doesn't have time to do so because Rose interrupts him. She approaches Lichte from behind and asks with great interest what is so important that her father is talking to the young man about. Alias replies that he and Lichte are talking about old times and asks the young man to confirm this, to which he agrees. Rose says she understands and apologizes for interrupting the conversation. Rose says goodnight to her father and Lichte, and tired after the long flight, slowly goes to her room to go to bed. Alias turns to Lichte and says that he feels like they've gotten too carried away with the conversation and it's time to end it. Lichte thanks Father Rose for everything. Lichte heads to the room to rest, but suddenly Dorothy calls out to him and asks the young man to wait. Lichte asks the girl for forgiveness for walking too fast, to which she asks him to walk more slowly. The two of them take a walk through the old vampire castle, where their mutual friend has lived since childhood. The heroes say that even the most ordinary corridor sparkles as it is polished to a shine in this castle, and they do not know whether it is possible to walk on the carpet in street shoes. One of them notices that the castle is full of things that should not be touched, although Rose was allowed. One of the boys suggests visiting the very place that Rose mentioned if they can find it. In response to the proposal, another agrees, saying that the library in this castle must be huge. Lichte remarks that there must be a great variety of books in it, and therefore there should be something for everyone's taste. Dorothy hopes that this will indeed be the case. The girl asks her friend where they should go, to which he replies that he himself does not know, so he suggests asking the inhabitants of the castle for directions. Suddenly, one of the girls working as maids in the castle appears behind Lichte. She asks if the young man called her. Lichte asks the girl if she is one of the maids in the castle, to which she replies that she is. She introduces herself and it turns out that her name is Kano. Kano tells the heroes that Rose asked to show them the right way, and the maid hopes that she will be useful in this request. Lichte and Dorothy thank the girl. Lichte turns to Kano, says that he and Dorothy would like to go to the library and asks how far the room is. Kano replies that it is not far at all and offers to take the boys there. The maid leads her comrades through the tangled corridors of the castle, telling them where to go at each turn. Finally, all three of them reach the library and go inside. The room turns out to be huge, with many different books inside. Dorothy speaks with amazement and admiration about the fact that the library is full of books that are over 200 years old, which cannot help but surprise. Dorothy, humming something under her breath, begins to enthusiastically look at a variety of books, asking if there is anything on necromancy in the library. Lichte calls out to the girl, but it is no use. Kano remarks that the girl must be very interested in science. Lichte agrees with Kano. Suddenly his gaze falls on a beautiful book with a gem in the middle, which is standing alone on the counter. He asks if he can see the book. The book is covered in some kind of reptile skin, and in the very center of its cover is a huge dark gemstone. Kano says that Lichte can, of course, look at this book. Lichte realizes that this book is obviously different from any other in the library. It turns out that its cover is made of dragon skin, and the book itself is encrusted with precious stones. He slowly picks up the book and examines it. The young man does not know what to expect from its contents. He opens the book and sees something he never expected to see in it. The book contains many photographs of Rose, from those where she is still a child to those in her later years. Lichte realizes that this album is about Rose's coming-of-age story and looks at it carefully. Kano is in a rush to find out Lichte's opinion about the photo album. She is very excited and genuinely interested in his thoughts. Kano remembers how long ago her mistress Rose was very cheerful and restless and constantly ran after the maids. Lichte is surprised and laughs that Rose also once had such a period in her life. Kano recalls that when Rose was injured, the entire castle was in an uproar as everyone in it was worried about her condition. The maid says that she likes the calm and reasonable Rose of today, but she also likes the past version of her. Suddenly, Kano stops and apologizes for saying such things. Lichte replies that it's okay. He sees another series of photographs and asks if they are from that time. Kano says the boy is right, and one of them shows Rose getting sick and another one shows her sleeping. Lichte realizes he can learn a lot. Suddenly, while Lichte is looking at the photographs and thinking about Rose, Kano speaks to him, breaking the boy out of his thoughts. She hands the hero a camera and says that she would like to see Rose working for the Demon Lord, hinting that next time Lichte should capture the moment. Kano also adds that he naturally should not do anything for free, and for such a thing the young man will definitely receive a reward. The maid begins to enthusiastically ask what he needs, mentioning people's money and treasures. Lichte, fussing, replies that he needs nothing. Kano, surprised, asks if he's sure about what he's giving up and asks him to think about it. Lichte asks if he just wants to capture Rose at work. Kano happily says that the young man understood everything correctly and she is counting on him. The maid asks to take at least 1,000 photos. She also adds that Rose's parents will also be very happy about this. Lichte is surprised by the word 1,000. Lichte says that 1,000 photographs are too many, to which Kano says he will give a kilogram of gold for one. The young man offers to give all the gold to Rose, as she knows exactly what to do with it. Suddenly, Dorothy bursts into the conversation, happily declaring that she has found a very interesting book. Dorothy says that thanks to the book she learned a lot of new valuable information, and also casually adds that she would pay absolutely any amount for such a book. Lichte looks at the book and realizes that it is written in symbols he has never seen before. He says that he does not understand anything. The young man asks Dorothy if she understands anything that is written in the book. The girl replies that of course she understands the content of the book, but it requires certain knowledge. Dorothy happily says that in order to read such a book, it is enough to have the knowledge gained from the school curriculum. Dorothy quickly reads books one after another. She puts the ones she has finished next to her, happily declaring that they will be put away later anyway. Lichte is surprised by the girl's reading speed. Suddenly, Dorothy calls out to Lichte, who apparently does not expect this and turns to face her friend with a surprised face. The girl says she wants to try something and asks the boy to stand still and not move. She reaches out her hand to him. Suddenly, a multitude of translucent hands appear from the floor, reaching out towards Lichte, who clearly isn't expecting this. The arms completely embrace his legs, and the young man exclaims in surprise, first feeling and then seeing this picture. He looks down at his legs, which are shaking non-stop, and tries in vain to break free, but his attempt is not crowned with success. Dorothy, watching this scene, takes pity on Lichte and takes her hands back, throwing a simple word cancel in his direction. Lichte rubs his legs with many sighs, letting Dorothy know that the boy did not like this experience very much. He asks if this was really written about in the book. The girl says that the book was written about almost exactly what she did, but there is a small difference. In the book, a corpse may be needed for this. Dorothy says that since there is no dead body nearby at the moment, she will try later. Dorothy sighs dejectedly and is sad that there are no enemies nearby and the new skill cannot be used on any of them. Lichte asks her friend not to say such terrible things. The young man cautiously but with interest asks what Dorothy is going to do with the corpse, to which she replies that she wants to place the soul into the dead body and control it. However, the girl interrupts her speech and looks at Lichte carefully. She says that there is one small but. She turns to Lichte and says that such a skill is not necessary with him, since this method requires time and a dead body, and also it does not work in every situation. Dorothy looks at Lichte pitifully and admits that she is a little jealous of him, to which he responds with a questioning look. Lichte asks Dorothy, perplexed, what she means, to which she quickly replies that nothing and deflects the question. The next morning, while Lichte is in the Rose family castle sleeping in one of the many rooms, someone comes to wake him up. She asks Lichte to wake up. The man, without waiting for Lichte to wake up, begins to shake him so that he wakes up as quickly as possible. This person turns out to be Rose. The girl sincerely does not know what to do and, looking around furtively, decides to act radically since she must wake up her friend. She leans towards the young man, saying that there is no other way out. Her intentions are known only to herself. Rose leans closer and closer to Lichte, but the young man suddenly opens his eyes and looks at his friend with obvious bewilderment. Surprised, even shocked, Lichte looks scared as Rose bites his hand. He asks what the girl is doing. The boy instantly rises up in bed and asks if Rose turned him into one of the vampires while he was sleeping, to which the girl replies that she is glad that Lichte finally woke up. The girl, hearing such assumptions from her friend, indignantly hurries to say that she did not turn him into anyone. She adds that she only drank a little blood in order to stir up the young man. Rose explains to the still frightened Lichte that he will not become a vampire until his saliva enters his system, so the young man has nothing to fear. Hearing this, he almost completely calms down. Lichte wastes no time and goes back to sleep. An indignant Rose screams that if he does this now, her attempts to wake her friend will be in vain. The girl does not give up hope of waking her friend from bed and continues futile attempts to wake him up. She says that if he does not wake up now, he will miss breakfast and will be hungry all day. Lichte wakes up and goes to breakfast. When he gets down, he sees Dorothy sitting at the table, wishing the young man a good morning, and he responds in kind. Suddenly, Rose notices that neither her father nor her mother are at the dinner table with them. She hurries to ask where her parents are, to which Dorothy replies that she saw them hurriedly leave somewhere. Rose says that it worries her. She is worried about her father and mother and the reason why they left the room so quickly. Lichte says that Rose shouldn't worry too much and take things too seriously. He adds that maybe they just want to throw a surprise party to celebrate their daughter's return. Rose hopes that's the case. Dorothy reproaches Lichte for being too optimistic and says that it could have been enemies who suddenly showed up, so there is no need to be so enthusiastic about the departure of Rose's parents. Lichte remarks that if they had been attacked, the castle would hardly have been so quiet. Rose happily agrees with him and says that it sounds quite logical. Dorothy wants to say something, but their conversation is interrupted by a maid running into the dining room. The maid runs into the dining room, throwing open the doors, indicating that uninvited guests have arrived in the castle, which naturally is very bad. Dorothy, Lichte, and Rose turn in fear to look at the bustling maid and realize that something definitely bad has happened. Lichte, Rose, and Dorothy fearfully ask the maid what uninvited guests have decided to visit the castle. The maid, very much fussing, quickly says that the castle was attacked by vampire hunters, 3 people. Rose clarifies the number of hunters, receiving the same answer as before, there are 3 of them. The maid continues to say tensely that other maids have gone against the hunters. It is clear from her that she is worried about them. Lichte's expression changes. His voice becomes firmer and he confidently says that he too will go to help the maids. The young man is more serious than ever. The same can be said about his friends. They also decide to go with Lichte to help the other maids. Lichte, Rose, and Dorothy run out of the dining room and run through the castle's many corridors in a hurry, while a group of kids watches them from around the corner, clearly plotting something. The young man in black clothes, his face covered, looks extremely unsure. He turns to his partner, whose name is Alf, and asks him if he is sure of his actions, knowing that it is quite dangerous to carry out his plans. The young man with wavy hair, the one called Alf, says that he will not give up on his plan under any circumstances, as he has been promised a generous reward for it. He tells his partner that if they complete the task, they will not have to work for a long time. It turns out that the guy in black is called Wait. A tall blonde woman addresses him, saying that he looks pathetic, having walked such a distance to the right place and then planning to run away in disgrace. Wait is worried that the castle looks nothing like the photos, which is very disturbing. He says that Alf should have found out the details beforehand. Alf tells him to shut up, explaining that the castle is just big. The girl enthusiastically addresses Wait, saying that he should not worry but think about the reward for the task, on which he can live for the rest of his life. Alf asks Wait not to forget about his strength and in no case to lose heart. Wait calms down a little, agrees with the guys and asks for forgiveness from his partners, the Alphas and the girl, whose name turns out to be Renee. The group decides to proceed according to plan. It turns out that their plan is to attack from 3 sides so that the enemy has little chance to dodge. Alf says that according to the information he has, there are 2 vampires living in the castle who will be very easy to defeat, cornering them and not giving them a single chance of salvation. Renee looks very confident and ready to take action, while Wait is practically shaking with fear and anxiety. The 3 boys enter the castle, and Alf concludes that the structure is indeed enormous. Alf looks around. Wandering through the corridors, he realizes that the decor in the hall is nothing short of luxurious and even opulent. He wonders how long it will take them to complete this seemingly easy task. Suddenly, the trio of Alf, Wait, and Renee are noticed by a maid named Kano, who shouts at Dorothy to come quickly and help. Alf takes out a sharp dagger and, swinging it towards Kano's back, orders her to be quiet, but the girl does not listen and continues to call Dorothy for help. The young man decides to silence the maid and pierces her with a dagger, almost touching her heart, thereby causing the girl great pain. Alf pulls the dagger out of her chest and angrily says that he was just acting on reflex. Suddenly, the young man notices something under his feet. It turns out that a multitude of arms are emerging from the floor, wrapping around Alpha's legs. He sees this and screams in surprise. In fact, it is Dorothy using a recently learned skill that the girl managed to practice on Lichte. Hands from the floor slowly but surely continue to wrap around Alpha's legs, who is very scared of this situation. The young man still finds a way to break free from the bonds that bind his legs, fighting off some parts with his feet and others with a dagger. Dorothy sees the dead maid on the floor and calmly asks her for forgiveness, justifying herself by saying that she simply didn't have time. Alf sees Dorothy and his face twists into an evil grin. He is glad that he has finally found one of the vampires and addresses her, calling Dorothy Vampire Cub. Suddenly, Alf notices that something is wrong with this vampire. The girl stands and looks at the young man in bewilderment. Alf realizes that this is not a vampire but a normal human. He gets angry when he realizes this and orders her to put her hands behind her head and kneel down, and says that if she does so, he will let her live. Suddenly, a staff covered with charms appears in Dorothy's hand, and a translucent, creepy ghost appears next to her. She asks how Alf will take her actions. The young man, watching this picture, gets even more angry and decides to attack the girl. He again pulls out the multi-pronged dagger and flies at Dorothy to deliver a fatal blow. Dorothy, as if she had long ago foreseen such a development of events, instantly dodges Alpha's blow. Realizing this, the young man understands that he has gotten involved with a far from ordinary girl, which scares him. He concludes that Dorothy is not so simple and knows how to fight people, and is also capable of setting traps, so you should be careful with her. Before Alf can fully comprehend what is happening, Dorothy once again uses her newly learned skill, loudly shouting "hands up," after which many translucent hands burst out of the ground and rush to grab Alf. Alf, already taught by bitter experience, shouts that this trick won't work a second time and dodges the moving limbs. He suddenly flies up to Dorothy, who clearly doesn't expect the attack, and kicks the girl in the stomach with his knee. Dorothy falls to the ground, clutching her stomach and writhing in pain. The girl clearly did not expect such a dishonest blow, but she is in no hurry to give up. Alf proudly and happily states that he knew he was superior in close combat. He smirks and offers to negotiate with Dorothy so that she at least stays alive. Dorothy laughs softly, her face contorted in pain and amusement. She tells Alf not to dream of such a scenario, openly mocking him. Alf, hearing open ridicule directed at him, becomes even more angry and decides to kill Dorothy after all, intending to launch another attack. He runs towards her with a dagger in his hand, ready to deliver the fatal blow while Dorothy stands still, screaming for her to die as quickly as possible. Dorothy lifts her leg sharply and with one blow easily knocks the dagger out of Alf's hands, and it falls to the floor with a clang. Alf thinks that Dorothy is very stupid, and even admits to himself that he feels a little sorry for the girl. He grabs her by the throat and tries to strangle her, realizing his superiority in close combat. He throws Dorothy to the floor and tries to strangle her, squeezing her throat harder and harder. Dorothy tries to knock him off her, but it's all in vain. The girl's eyes gradually close from lack of oxygen, and she almost loses consciousness when suddenly something strange happens. Someone comes up behind Alf and stabs him in the back with his own dagger. The boy clearly did not expect this. He cannot understand who did it. He turns around and sees the maid he killed just recently standing behind him, her eyes dull. She calmly holds his dagger in both hands and no longer makes any attempts to act. As Alf bleeds out, he remembers that he killed the maid a few minutes ago, but he is no longer sure about it. It all seems very strange to him. Dorothy coughs loudly from being strangled and tries her best to push the nearly dead Alf off of her. She touches her neck and sadly notes that after such events there will definitely be a bruise on her throat, which is not very good. She turns to the maid and asks her forgiveness for using the maid as bait, which resulted in her being killed. The spirit that possessed the servant's body leaves it, and the lifeless corpse falls on Dorothy, while the girl manages to catch it. She notices that this is the first time she has found herself in such an unusual situation, so she understands that she is truly lucky. Dorothy concludes that the spell she thought was completely useless has unexpectedly helped her in such an emergency. Dorothy sits down tiredly on the floor, with the bodies of Alf and the maid lying next to her. She wonders with genuine interest how Rose and Lichte are doing now and what they are doing. At this time, Renee walks along the corridors and at the same time continues to kill the vampire maids who are trying, if not to stop the girl, then to detain her. She kills the maids mercilessly, using a thin and sharp sword, striking them in the chest and thus inflicting mortal wounds. Renee is intrigued by how things are going with Alf and Wait, completely unaware of what happened to her first partner. She meets another maid on her way, who is preparing to try to stop the girl who is a vampire hunter. The maid says that she will not let Renee go further under any circumstances. Renee asks boredly what kind of stupid actions the maid is doing. The girl says that the maid's actions remind her of a circus performance. The huntress says that if the maid does not immediately tell where her masters are, she will go to her 3 other dead comrades. The maid cannot and does not want to believe that Renee killed 3 maids. Suddenly, the maid sees the bodies of 3 other workers behind Renee and screams in horror. She is both scared and hurt to see her comrades killed. Renee says menacingly that if the maid does not immediately reveal the location of her masters, she too will end up dead. She adds that there are many people in the castle who could die instead of the brave maid. Renee, continuing to hear the maid's refusal to hand over her masters, offers to torture her and thereby extract the information the hunter needs. Renee says that she will abuse the maid in every possible way, using the most sophisticated methods, such as, for example, tearing off fingers, which naturally greatly frightens the practically defenseless maid. Renee, seeing the undisguised and clearly readable fear on the maid's face, mocks her and raises his sword high above his head to strike. The huntress says that she would be happy to mock the maid, but she doesn't have time for that, so she'll have to deal with her quickly. The maid doesn't know what to do. She wants to attack Renee, but Renee manages to do it before the maid does, and shouting the word "for," she fatally wounds her with her sword. The girl pulls the sword out of the maid's chest, whose lifeless body falls to the ground. This scene is witnessed by Lichte. He turns to Renee with anger and disappointment in his voice, and says that people and magical creatures are equally cruel, which cannot help but upset her. Renee looks at Lichte and calls him a clown, looking at him with disdain. The young man does not respond to her. Renee notices that Lichte is not a vampire. She is surprised by this, but does not change her opinion about being in a circus and not a castle. Renee turns to Lichte and asks what he is doing in a place like this castle if he is not a vampire. Lichte asks menacingly why she came to the castle and what she forgot there. The young man is clearly not in a friendly mood towards the huntress. Renee repeats his question, making it rhetorical. She smirks and says that she only came to the castle to earn as much money as possible. Renee says this standing next to the bodies of the maids she killed. Lichte says, disappointed and dejected, that he understands everything. His look expresses both sadness and pain at the same time. Renee looks at him, raising an eyebrow, and asks if he has anything to say to her. She has no idea what is going on in the boy's head. Suddenly, a magic circle appears next to Renee, and the maids she killed come back to life, which naturally surprises and at the same time frightens the huntress. She turns around in fear and cannot believe her eyes. Lichte turns to the maids and asks them to leave the battlefield as quickly as possible to keep themselves safe while he fights Renee. The young man orders the maids to find Dorothy or Rose and report to them what happened, and to call for help if necessary. The maids say that they will do everything and can be counted on. They wish Lichte luck in the fight and hurry to leave the corridor as quickly as possible. Renee, watching this scene, laughs at Lichte's confidence and courage that came out of nowhere. She asks the young man if he is really as brave as he seems, or if he just doesn't want the maids to see him die. Lichte doesn't answer. Renee asks Lichte to answer one simple question. She asks him what he is doing in this vampire castle as a normal human. She pauses for a second, then continues her question. She asks what Lichte expects from siding with the vampires and laughs at him. Lichte asks in response, puzzled, what is wrong with being in an alliance with vampires. It is clear that he sincerely does not understand what is wrong with such a relationship with another race. Renee tells Lichte that the answer to his question is obvious. The fact is that by taking the side of demons or vampires, any person automatically commits treason. Therefore, the young man himself is one. Lichte is genuinely surprised by such words, but decides not to waste time on useless arguments, and one might say agrees with Renee. Renee says that Lichte must have gone completely mad, and she promises to destroy the traitor. Lichte makes no attempt to attack Renee, while the girl runs towards him, holding her sword ready to wound the young man. She strikes Lichte with her sword, which the boy deflects. Renee tells the boy to burn in hell. Lichte stands with a sword, clutching it with both hands. Renee, seeing how Lichte fights, says that he is a capable guy, and if he stayed in the human world, he could probably earn good money thanks to his skills. The girl says that Lichte's departure from the human world is a real loss for people. Having said this, Renee attacks the young man again, but he dodges again, answering that he will take her words as a compliment. Renee mockingly asks Lichte if he left the human world because he was not needed by anyone and had nowhere to go. She adds that if she guessed the reason, she takes it back. Renee comes up close to Lichte and suddenly and abruptly stabs him in the chest with her sword, saying goodbye to the guy. He clearly does not expect such an action. Lichte concludes that Renee must not have been fighting at full strength to begin with. The girl abruptly rips the sword from his chest. The boy falls to the ground. Renee starts counting the dead again, but then she stops and realizes that there are no more people in this place, so the counter is really useless in this situation. She wonders how Alf and Wait are doing with the task. The girl sincerely hopes that their group will be able to corner their opponents and destroy them, thereby ensuring a comfortable life for themselves. Suddenly, a movement behind her pulls Renee out of her thoughts. It turns out that Lichte is not dead at all. He grabs his sword and stabs Renee in the arm while her back is turned to him. Renee turns to the boy who hit her and can't believe her eyes. Lichte is sitting next to her, holding a sword near the girl's hand while blood is flowing from the limb. She exclaims in surprise that she killed Lichte. Lichte, healthy and unharmed, finally rises to his feet. Renee can't believe her eyes. She just killed him with her own hands. The girl concludes that Lichte must have resurrected the maids as well. Suddenly, Renee realizes that if the young man regenerates so quickly and is also endowed with the ability to resurrect others, then things are very, very bad for her, since the guy poses a serious danger. The girl sees Lichte running towards her to attack. Suddenly, the girl notices that his blow is a feint and figures out how to use it to her advantage. Renee deflects the blow. The girl asks the boy what happened. She sincerely does not understand how he can stand before her alive while she killed him with her own hands. Lichte decides not to answer this question honestly and speaks in riddles. Renee asks if Lichte sold his soul to the devil or did something worse. The boy doesn't answer the question, but his face immediately darkens after Renee calls Lichte a monster. The girl confidently says that she will kill the guy as many times as necessary. The guy is very confused. Renee once again tells Lichte to burn in hell and sets about fulfilling her promises to kill him. At first, the girl stabs Lichte with a sword again, but he resurrects again and again. No matter how Renee tried to destroy the young man, she failed. The girl tried to behead and cut the guy, but it was all in vain. He resurrected. Renee can't believe that Lichte is not only immortal but not killable. This not only shocks the girl but truly scares her. Lichte rises to his feet once again. Renee says that even vampires and zombies die instantly if their hearts are damaged, but the young man can no longer listen to these words. Renee grabs her sword once again and strikes Lichte with her weapon many times. The girl furiously wishes the boy death, but it is useless. Renee calls Lichte a mad monster, as he inflicts numerous wounds on him that seem completely incompatible with life. Having killed Lichte once again, Renee decides to find her comrades, Alpha and Wait, as soon as possible. She turns around and hurries out of the corridor, but the magic circle appears behind the girl again. Lichte comes back to life once again, completely safe and sound, and asks Renee if the girl has brought her friends to the castle. Renee turns around and is horrified to see a living Lichte standing behind her. She decides to find Wait and Alpha as soon as possible and leave the immortal guy behind. The girl turns sharply in the opposite direction from Lichte and runs away as quickly as possible. At the same time, a restless Wait continues to creep through the numerous corridors of the vampire castle. He wonders if Alf and Renee will be able to cope with the task, but then adds that he is not sure about it. Trembling with excitement and fear, Wait is once again convinced that neither he nor Alf nor Renee should have agreed to such a strange and dangerous mission. The young man is genuinely surprised that he has not yet encountered a single enemy on his way, which is very strange. It seems to him that someone is luring him into a trap. Afterwards, Wait decides that the vampires are not smart enough for such a plan, and there is nothing unusual in the castle at all. Wait looks very dejected and disappointed, as he realizes that he will probably have to act alone without a team. He genuinely does not understand how this happened and is truly upset by such thoughts. Suddenly, Wait notices a small black bat flying towards him. He doesn't immediately understand what is happening, but then he suddenly reaches for the dagger attached to his belt. Wait grabs the dagger and throws it at the bat with all his might, screaming at it to get away as quickly as possible. The dagger pierces the mouse, but it does not fall to its death but continues to hover in the air. Wait is surprised by such an unusual phenomenon, but immediately understands that something is clearly wrong. Suddenly, a huge number of bats, which are clearly not friendly towards the guy, attack the young man in black clothes. With each passing minute, there are more and more bats so that the sky seems to darken. The bats rush to attack Wait, and the guy realizes that it will be very difficult to kill them all. He does not have enough knives with him to hurt every creature. Suddenly, many bats gather into one large pile the size of a man. They gather into a black figure of a man, similar in outline to a girl. Unexpectedly for Wait, the mice finally merge into one whole, which turns out to be Rose. who is clearly indignant about what is happening. Rose smiles and, clearly aware of her superiority, says that Wait shouldn't have attacked the bat, since that was how he let the girl know where he was. Wait looks at Rose with bewilderment and suddenly calls her a strange vampire, which of course insults the girl. She doesn't understand what's wrong, as suddenly the boy calls the girl a child, which is not true at all. This completely confuses Rose. Rose snaps back that she is in no way a child. She also warns Wait that no surprise attack will work, so he shouldn't even try to hurt the girl. Unexpectedly for Wait, Rose says that she would like to have a conversation with the guy. It is clear that the girl is in no hurry to join the fight. She introduces herself by her name and asks if the knife that Wait used to attack that bat was poisoned, as the girl feels a slight burning sensation all over her body. Wait, dejectedly and even boredly, confirms that the girl is right, which makes her very happy. She claps her hands enthusiastically and says that she thought that something was wrong with her. Wait is genuinely surprised that the poison doesn't work. He is genuinely confused by Rose's good health and optimism in this situation. Wait continues to think about the poison. He realizes that even if there was only a small amount on the knife, Rose should still feel at least a little sick. Rose, as if reading Wait's thoughts, asks if he thinks the guy thinks his poison is very weak. Wait gets irritated when he hears such a comment and says that such things do not concern Rose. The girl, hearing such a reproach, hurries to apologize. At one point, her entire face changes expression. Rose smiles and says she wants to get to the main topic of conversation. She asks if the hunters will stop showing up near her house if she kills the 3 that came this time. Wait tenses up at the words. He decides to say something back. The guy says that the castle could be considered a dangerous place, but thanks to him and his team ravaging the place, it will no longer be so. Rose says that she understands everything and turns away boredly, looking at the walls and the patterns on them. Wait looks at Rose and knows he can't afford to miss this perfect opportunity to strike. He notices that the girl is completely different from other vampires, as she looks like an adult, but in reality she behaves like a little child. Wait's plan is simple. He hopes to disturb Rose's peace and then suddenly pierce her heart with a poisoned dagger. He also understands that the dagger does not have to be poisoned at all. One blow to the heart is enough. Rose looks away from Wait and says that she wants to end the conversation here, since she has other things to do besides him. The girl casually replies that it's high time she visited Dorothy and Lichte. After these words, Wait decides how to throw the girl off balance. Suddenly, the guy turns to Rose and says that she will not be able to meet with either Dorothy or Lichte, hoping to hurt the girl with these words. Wait says that Rose will never be able to see his friends again, as they were captured by his partners long ago. Hearing this, Rose immediately loses her temper and asks the guy to repeat what he just said. She shouts that the guy doesn't know either Lichte or Dorothy, so in his situation it's better for him to stand silently. Wait continues his lie. He says that he heard that Rose's friends were very easy to catch, and asks the girl if she is interested in knowing what his partners did to her comrades. Rose gets even angrier and yells at the guy that he is talking complete nonsense. Rose blushes with anger and can't help herself. Suddenly, the girl flies up to Wait and sinks her fangs into his hand, which he clearly does not expect. Rose clenches her teeth on Wait's hand harder and bites through the skin. The masked guy winces in pain and cries out, but still tries to control himself. Wait decides that it is not yet time to attack Rose, it is too early. He decides to wait until the girl runs to help her friends, and realizes that it is at this moment that he will plunge the dagger into her heart and kill her. Wait is absolutely confident that when he attacks Rose from behind, he will not miss under any circumstances. The guy continues his cleverly devised lie, and says that his partners reported to him that Rose's friends were caught. He also adds that if Rose does not believe his words, he can leave and personally check whether he is lying to her or not. Rose is very angry and does not know what to do. Suddenly, Rose lets go of Wait, turns around and runs to help her friends, Lichte and Dorothy. Wait, seeing this, prepares his dagger. Suddenly, Rose rises high into the air and turns to face Wait, who is about to sneak up on her. She sternly orders him to end his life, and to his surprise, he cannot resist her words. With trembling hands, the boy turns his poisoned dagger blade towards himself and makes a big swing. He sharply lowers the blade into his heart, causing him to fall to the ground and die. At this time, Dorothy hurries to find Lichte, and if necessary, to help him. She quickly finds the unharmed young man and is very happy about this. An agitated Rose runs up to Lichte and asks if he is okay while examining the boy for injuries. The girl also asks if something bad happened to her friend. Lichte quietly replies that something did happen. Lichte replies that he is absolutely fine, although his face suggests the opposite. He is clearly trying to hide something from his girlfriend. Rose excitedly says that she heard that Lichte was caught. She is sincerely glad that the young man was not hurt, and the girl shares her thoughts with the young man. Lichte, confused and perplexed, says that his opponent ran away. He also says that a girl fought against him, but because she runs too fast, Lichte was unable to catch up with her no matter how hard he tried. Rose enthusiastically suggests to Lichte that they search for the huntress together so that the search would be more effective. The girl suggests first of all to find and visit their mutual friend Dorothy. Lichte agrees, saying that it is a very good idea. Lichte asks Rose if she knows where Dorothy is at the moment, but the girl realizes that she does not know. Instead of coming up with different guesses, Rose decides to immediately go in search of her friend. She picks up Lichte, spreads her bat wings, and flies up. She tells her friend to hold on as tight as he can as they are going on a quest. The girl shares her worries with her friend. She says that she will not tolerate anything bad happening to Dorothy. Her face contorts in anger. Rose says that if the people who attacked the castle did something to Dorothy, she will definitely kill them all with her own hands. Lichte says that the girl has enough fighting spirit. As they fly to find their friend, Rose says that she can't believe that Dorothy lost the battle. The girl says that there is no way she could lose the battle. Rose adds warily that her friend might be lying on the ground injured, so she and Lichte really should hurry up. Rose sincerely hopes that her thoughts are wrong. Rose, holding Lichte in her arms, flies past one of the castle's windows. Suddenly, she notices their mutual friend Dorothy sitting on the floor in one of the rooms. Rose, seeing the girl, exclaims joyfully. Rose and Lichte fly in through the window and rush to help Dorothy as quickly as possible if needed. They see that the girl herself is not injured. Two dead bodies lie near her, the maid and Alpha. Dorothy says that Lichte is a good man for coming back and completing the task, but right after, the girl tells the young man to help her revive the maid and points to the girl's body. The guy says that he will do everything. Lichte asks if Dorothy is okay and notices that the girl has something on her neck. Rose looks at her friend's throat and sees a huge bruise on it. She asks worriedly what happened to her friend. Rose begins to worry and fuss, telling her friend how bad it will be if the scar from this wound remains for the rest of her life. But Dorothy brushes it off, replying that everything will be fine and she is sure of it. While the girls talk to each other, trying to figure out if the wound will leave a mark for long, Lichte uses his resurrection skill and revives the maid Alf killed. She slowly opens her eyes and regains consciousness. The maid sees Lichte and greets him, and the young man responds. Dorothy comes to life with relief, seeing that the maid is alive again, which cannot but please the boys. Dorothy examines the maid and realizes that she even retained her memory, which is very good. Lichte's friend tells him that he has simply incredible abilities. The young man says that such tasks are definitely within his power. Lichte tells Rose about the wound on Dorothy's neck. The young man says that if they kill and then resurrect their mutual friend, the marks on her throat will definitely disappear. Rose is frightened by this proposal. Even understanding its effectiveness, she refuses. The maid sees that Dorothy is injured and offers the girl to bring her something cold to apply to the wound. Lichte says he was fighting a girl when the hunters attacked the castle. He asks Dorothy to use her spirit summoning skill to track down where Renee ran off to. Dorothy happily replies that she certainly can. The girl also says that it will not be difficult for her to do this, since it is very easy and quick to search for people with the help of spirits. Suddenly, everyone swarms. Lichte, Rose, and Dorothy realize that someone is standing behind them. They tense up very much when suddenly the person behind them starts screaming piercingly. The boys shudder in surprise and also scream in fear, being in terror. Lichte asks in horror what just happened, while Dorothy practically sits on the ground and covers her ears with her hands. Suddenly, Rose understands what is happening, and her fear instantly passes and is replaced by joy. Rose turns around happily, and seeing a long familiar silhouette before her eyes, declares that it is simply her father, and therefore there is absolutely nothing to be afraid of. The friends see that Dorothy is not feeling well after the prank and find out if everything is okay with her. Soon, Rose's mother, Camilla, appears. They address their daughter's friends as Mr. Lichte and Miss Dorothy. Alias and Camilla sincerely thank them for their help, not sparing pleasant and warm words. The girls' parents say with admiration that Lichte and Dorothy not only resurrected their beloved Rose, but also helped protect their own home from an attack by hunters who clearly weren't going to leave empty-handed. All of Rose's family and friends sit down at the dinner table again and say that neither Alias nor Camilla should thank them, as there is no need for it. Lichte remembers that Renee managed to escape and hurries to report this to Father Rose, to which he says that he met her on the way to the castle and solved the problem himself, so there is no need to worry about her. Lichte is surprised that it was him. Lichte says, disappointed and dejected, that he was the only one who did not help, which upsets the young man greatly. But upon hearing this, Alias says that the boy is wrong and actually helped a lot. Rose's parents look happily at their daughter and her friends. after which they say that they are indebted to the guys, but are sincerely grateful to them for the help they have provided. Rose cheerfully and carefully asks Licht not to be modest and to accept gratitude from her parents. Suddenly the girl says that after such a grueling battle, now is the best time to regain strength and suggests having lunch. She puts a lot of chicken legs on Licht's plate, and he is very surprised by their large number. Rose's mother, Camilla, kindly asks the children when their last day of vacation is, and finds out if today is that day. The woman says, upset, that she would really like the three guys to stay longer, and very sadly says that, unfortunately, this is impossible. Rose confirms that this is indeed the case. Rose says hopefully that even if she is leaving, it does not mean that the girl will never see her mother again. She promises that she will definitely visit her on her next vacation. Camilla is very pleased to hear such words from her daughter, whom she has not seen for 100 years, and she says with love in her voice that she will always be glad to see her daughter in the house, so the girl can return to the castle at any time. Dorothy and Licht decide not to disturb the family and not to interrupt the idol, so they leave the dining room for a while, leaving Rose alone with her parents, whom the girl has not seen for a very long time. Alias looks at his daughter and says that if she suddenly finds it very difficult at work, she can always turn to him for help, and he will definitely come up with something that can help. Rose replies that she is very grateful to her father for this. A smile lights up Rose's face, and she happily says that working in dystopia with the others is a real pleasure. Suddenly the girl's face takes on an even happier expression, and she admits that she loves all her friends who work with her very much. Rose's parents are happy that their daughter has grown into such a beautiful young woman. They say that they probably shouldn't worry about her well-being at the moment, as they can see that everything is fine. Rose smiles happily as she looks at her parents. Suddenly, Alias interrupts the family idol with an unexpected question. He decides to ask Rose if she thinks that she and Licht would make a very good couple. Rose, hearing such an embarrassing question, instantly blushes and becomes confused. The girl is even more embarrassed by the fact that Licht is sitting next to her, but she turns her head and sees that her friend is not there, which greatly surprises Rose. Camilla joins her husband's idea and says that Licht is a very good, kind, sympathetic, and noble young man, so she is not against it if her daughter suddenly marries him. Rose blushes even more and asks her mother not to embarrass her. Right after this, Alias tells his daughter that he told Licht a lot of good things about her, so that, in his opinion, it helped improve the relationship between Rose and Licht. The girl asks her father not to do anything unnecessary anymore, as she is worried. Rose is confused. She honestly doesn't know how she's supposed to talk to her friend like nothing happened after such awkward situations. Alias replies that judging by his observations of Licht, Rose is far from indifferent to the young man, which cannot help but hurt the girl's feelings. She sighs hopefully. The girl is genuinely surprised, but at the same time very happy about what her father just said. The hope in her heart grows with every second. She asks if it is true. Rose jumps into her father's arms and he catches the girl. Alias said that he had never deceived his beloved daughter before, and therefore his words can be trusted. Rose agrees with her dad and thanks him from the bottom of her heart. Alias looks at his daughter and understands that it is time to say goodbye again for an indefinite period, which does not please the man at all. Rose also understands this and becomes very upset. She collects her thoughts and, trying not to cry, says that Licht and Dorothy are waiting for her to go to the service, but also adds that she will definitely come back again to visit her parents. Alias and Camilla are also trying to hold back their tears, but Camilla is not doing a very good job. They ask Rose to take care of herself. The girl promises that she will definitely be fine. Rose says it's time for her to go. She smiles widely and finally says goodbye to her parents. The girl turns and runs after Licht and Dorothy to go back to work. Sometime later, Licht, Dorothy, and Rose return to dystopia. Licht looks rather tired after another not very comfortable flight. The young man goes to his room and finally enters it. In the room, he is met by an inspired Ferris. She congratulates the young man on his return. She happily and contentedly says that she cleaned Licht's room while he was away. He doesn't immediately understand what to say in response to such words and simply says a short thank you. The boy remembers the mess of books he left behind when he left dystopia and thinks he should have cleaned it up himself. Ferris asks Licht how his vacation went, distracting him from thinking about the mess he left behind. Licht confidently replies that he really enjoyed visiting Rose. He says that he met the girl's parents and also tried a lot of new and different delicious food. Ferris replies that she is happy for Licht because he had a good time. She finds it important to say that in the absence of Licht, Rose, and Dorothy, nothing dangerous happened in dystopia and no problems arose. Licht listens to such news dejectedly, remembering what happened in the castle. He does not understand who exactly was on vacation. Ferris suddenly remembers that she has another piece of news for Lichte. The girl says with enthusiasm in her voice that the demon lord recently came looking for him to talk to him about something. Ferris immediately suggests that Lichte go to Arya together to apologize for everything at once. Lichte does not understand what he needs to apologize for, and he asks why Ferris thinks that if Arya called him, it was only because he did something bad. Ferris looks at the boy carefully, who continues to say something to her. Lichte decides that he needs to hurry to the demon lord so that she does not really go berserk. Ferris replies that she has already offered the boy to go to Arya together to apologize right away. Lichte decides not to start a pointless argument and simply accepts the offer. As Ferris and Lichte go to meet the demon lord, the girl remarks that Arya wasn't evil when she was looking for Lichte, so he probably has nothing to worry about. He thanks Ferris for the information. Suddenly Lichte realizes that he feels like something is definitely wrong with the girl. He asks why she is so kind and suspiciously nice on this day. The young man asks if something good happened to the girl. Ferris freezes for a second, but then immediately says that nothing special happened to her and Lichte just thinks that something is wrong with her. Suddenly, a familiar voice is heard from behind them. It turns out to be the demon lord. She is happy that she finally managed to find Lichte. She clearly does not look angry, which cannot but please the young man. Arya says enthusiastically that she hasn't seen the guy in a long time. She asks Lichte if he had a good time on vacation. Lichte says that his vacation was indeed good and fun, but there is one but. He complains that he hardly feels rested. The demon lord is surprised to hear such words. Arya says that she will definitely listen to his incredible stories about his recent vacation later, but now she has an important matter to discuss with the guy. She says that something will soon happen to Iris and Tis. Two girls enter the room who are elves. Both of them are blonde, but one is clearly older than the other, who is carried on the back of the adult. The older girl apologizes to the demon lord for being late for the meeting. Suddenly, Arya says that it should be postponed for later, as the matter is urgent. Ferris stands near the girls and carefully watches them and what is happening around. The demon lord says that Dorothy and Rose should rest a little longer. Lichte, with a hint of indignation in his voice, asks why he has to work right after the road. Arya says that it just happened that way and she is powerless in the situation. Suddenly, the demon lord looks at Lichte and realizes that something is wrong with the boy. She concludes that something has definitely changed in him during the trip, and certainly not for the better. Arya tells a puzzled Lichte that it's not just his appearance that has changed, but something inside that has definitely changed. The demon lord concludes to himself that the aura around Lichte has become more visible. Arya realizes that something bad must have happened during the vacation that greatly affected the boy's well-being. The demon lord decides not to waste much time on questioning and to do it later, when he has more than enough. Arya says that while Lichte, Rose, and Dorothy were on vacation, a lot of work has piled up in dystopia. The demon lord emphasizes that Rose has especially had a lot of work to do. She offers Lichte and the others to help their friend with her work. The demon lord raises his hand with enthusiasm and a lively voice and says that now is the time to get to work as soon as possible. Neither Lichte nor Ferris nor the elf girls will share Arya's joy. Lichte gets to work and opening another book suddenly plunges into his memories. The young man realizes that several months have passed since the day Lichte resurrected the demon lord's army. A lot has happened in his life since then. The young man understands that if we compare his life in the human world before his exile with his current life, then Lichte can say with complete confidence that he is happy in his, one might say, new life. Lichte also remembers the people who betrayed him when he was still living in the human world. The young man understands that the wound from betrayal is slowly but surely healing. Lichte concludes that even his perception of his own life has changed. He realizes that even his skill resurrection of the dead, which the boy thought was useless, turned out to be very important. Lichte admits to himself that dystopia is beautiful. The young man adds that dystopia would be a perfect place if you forget about the number of tasks assigned to him. While the young man is lost in his thoughts, someone comes up to him from behind and addresses the boy by name. It turns out that Ferris approaches the young man. She asks if it is time for the boy to go on the mission that the demon lord has entrusted to him. Lichte sullenly rises from the table and pushes the chair he was sitting on back with a heavy sigh. Ferris asks her friend what happened to him and if everything is okay. She doesn't understand why the guy looks so depressed. Suddenly, Arya herself comes up to the guy and also asks him what is bothering him, hoping that he will really tell her. But Lichte says she thinks he is, and he is actually fine. He asks what he needs to do to complete the task. He hopes to get it over with as soon as possible. The demon lord decides not to bother Lichte with questions and therefore gets straight to the point. It turns out that someone in Lichte is hunting for Byrne's head. Arya boldly tells the young man about it. The demon lord says that he will not look for synonyms for the words and will say it directly. Byrne asked her for help and protection. Lichte and Ferris listen attentively to the task and remain silent. Lichte decides to ask first why Byrne didn't delegate the task of protecting her to her own henchmen. He finds it illogical. The demon lord replies that it is a reasonable decision since Byrne does not trust her henchmen. It turns out that Byrne believes that a large assassin guild is hunting her. Arya says that, knowing the chaos that is happening in the human world, she feels sorry for poor Byrne, as the girl has almost no security of her own. Ferris cautiously asks Arya if it wouldn't be more logical and efficient to send Lichte to Byrne when she is killed, so that the boy can resurrect her. The demon lord confidently replies that she does not. She adds that if a kingdom in chaos loses its queen, it will surely be doomed. If Lichte resurrects Byrne, the people will immediately understand who their queen really is. In fact, Byrne is a kitsune, a human and a fox at the same time. Lichte understands that such a serious mission is not only to protect Byrne herself, but also the girl's status. The Overlord still says that if Byrne is killed, Lichte will have to resurrect her. It turns out that Arya can only entrust such a task to one member of the team, Lichte. The young man confidently answers that he will take on the task. Arya happily says that she never doubted him and is very happy with such a decision from the guy. Lichte looks at Ferris with peace, when suddenly Arya says that she forgot to notify the guy about another important news regarding the task. Lichte will be in Byrne Castle under the guise of the girl's friend. The demon lord asks the boy not to draw any unnecessary attention to himself, to which Lichte replies that he will be very careful and cautious, so she has no need to worry. Arya replies that she has obtained something important for such an occasion. Suddenly she turns around and the clothes on her body turn into a black uniform consisting of a skirt, jacket, and beret with a crest. Lichte can't take his eyes off the girl because she looks really unusual. Arya asks if the outfit suits her, while Lichte is genuinely surprised that the demon lord would go on a mission with him. Suddenly, Lichte notices blood on Arya's uniform and wonders where she got it. Ferris and Lichte look at Arya and notice that she seems suspiciously excited, to which the demon lord orders them to be quiet. At Byrne Castle, a maid comes into her room with a tray of food, while the girl is busy with her own affairs. Byrne thanks the maid, whose name turns out to be Anna, and asks her to put her tray on the table. The maid sees that something is wrong with her mistress, and so the girl asks when Byrne will finally cheer up. The girl also notices that her mistress is under guard, so she has nothing to fear. Byrne is not sure about this. Suddenly, Byrne warns Anna that the girl's friends will soon arrive at the castle. She warns the maid that, although these people are a little strange, they should not be feared. Anna is very surprised. The maid says that since her mistress's guests will soon arrive, they must be greeted with dignity and given a warm welcome. To this, Byrne says that her friends have a far from simple character, so it is not worth approaching them once again. Anna says that she understood everything. Byrne understands to himself that the guests will have a difficult character, since there is definitely a demon lord among them. Byrne understands that Anna will probably do something that the demon lord will not like, for which Arya will destroy her, and this cannot be allowed. Suddenly, a man behind the screen that is the entrance to her chambers addresses Byrne. He says that some people have arrived at the castle. He adds that the two new arrivals identified themselves as Byrne's friends and wanted to meet her. He asks what to do with them. Immediately after, the man adds that the guests are a boy and a girl. Byrne doesn't know what she should do until the man behind the screen calls out the names of the guests: Mr. Lichte and Mrs. Arya. Byrne practically jumps up on his chair and hurries to greet the guests. The girl orders that the new arrivals be immediately admitted to the castle, to her chambers. Byrne also calls them his friends and asks to give them a worthy reception. The man behind the screen says that everything will be done and quickly leaves. Byrne tells Anna that her mistress's friends have finally arrived. She asks not to forget that it is not worth bothering these people and dismisses the maid. Byrne praises his maid Anna, calling her a good girl. She asks the girl not to let her down, and if they succeed, the girl will thank Anna later. The maid said she would try. Anna slammed the door and Byrne was left alone. Arya and Lichte came in. Byrne saw the demon lord and thanked her for the honor. Arya says that they just ran into a rude maid. The girl says that when she met them, she kept looking at the floor. Byrne asks them to ignore her. Arya asks how Byrne is doing with the assassins. They don't have time to hang around here for long. Lichte notes that the main slacker said that. Arya pinches Lichte and asks him to be quiet. Arya asks how Byrne knew that the assassin was hiding somewhere, since it is a failure for an assassin if the victim knows about his existence. Byrne confidently said that she learned about it from fortune-telling. Arya asks if the girl would really think that she would believe it. She says that if Byrne invited them for fun, then they should say goodbye. Byrne asks to believe in it because she saw it with her own eyes. The girl speaks about her future in which she will be killed. Lichte thinks that as a kitsune, Burn can sense the danger that threatens her. The young man turns to Arya and says that he thinks Burn is telling the truth. It's unlikely that the girl was so emotional for the sake of a joke, so it might be better to believe them. Arya sighs and says that since Lichte thinks so, they will do their best. Burn thanks the Demon Lord and Lichte-sama. Arya asks the girl if she knows when they are supposed to kill Burn. The girl replies that she thinks it will happen in the next 3 days, but she doesn't know who the killer will be or how many there will be. Arya asks if it is possible to know the exact time. Burn gives a negative answer. Arya puts on a serious face and says that Burn doesn't care about her being killed, but rather that someone will see her. Burn replies that of course. Arya says that Burn should just lock herself in this room and not let anyone in. Burn says that the country is in chaos, so she can't completely isolate herself from the outside world. Arya says that the girl could give orders without leaving here. If she doesn't meet anyone in person, there won't be any problems. Also, there's probably at least one of her subjects that Burn trusts. Ben replies that there is only one person among the subjects. She thinks that she should not meet Anna in person, so this thought makes her sad. Burn thinks that if Anna relays her orders, they will be able to communicate with her. Arya says that the issue is resolved. Plus, no one will ever know Burn's true identity. Arya also says that if she dies, Lichte will be there to resurrect her immediately. She asks the boy if he has any objections to this plan. The boy asks Arya to wait. Arya laughs and says that Lichte shouldn't be near Burn even in the bathroom, but they will definitely spend a lot of time together. Burn says she doesn't mind. Arya smiles and says she doesn't seem to care. Burn says that's right. Lichte bows and says they will do everything they can. Arya flops down on the bed and says that she's going to take a nap for now and that she needs to be woken up when the enemies arrive. Lichte says that everything is fine, and Burn asks if that's wise. Lichte says he will do everything in his power. And so began the top-secret mission to protect the queen of the country of Lichte. After a while, Burn tells how things are now. She says that for the next 3 days, Anna should not enter her room. She also orders that the others be informed about this. Anna, standing behind the door, says that it will be done. Then the girl asks if everything is all right with her mistress. Burn says that Anna does not have to worry. If something happens, then Anna should report everything to her through the door. She also says that she only allows Anna to approach the room. The girl says that she will try. Burn says that he is counting on the girl. After a while, she returns to Arya and Lichte and apologizes for the wait. Arya asks if Burn trusts this chatty girl too much. She can see how Anna will get them into a lot of trouble. Burn says that although Anna may seem frivolous, she knows how to keep her mouth shut. Burn says that she can only trust her. Arya says that in that case, everything is fine. Lichte says Burn has done a good job as queen. She thought Burn wouldn't agree to 3 days of isolation. He asks if Burn really only trusts Anna. Arya says there's no guarantee the others won't blab, and it'll be easier for them if no one tries to find out about them. Burn says everyone's busy right now with the adventurers' unrest. She says that people are stupid creatures after all. Arya says that it's all exactly like that and Lichte sighs slightly. Lichte says that the preparations are complete, then asks what they will do next. Burn says that they should keep themselves busy. She says they could play cards, but that would probably get boring quickly. Arya yawns and says she's going to take a nap and they can decide what to do. Arya falls onto the bed and falls asleep. Burn awkwardly offers Lichte to play cards, but the boy says he doesn't know the rules. The girl replies that she is very sorry. There is an awkward pause between them. Then the girl talks about Lichte's abilities. She says that Lichte can resurrect the dead. The boy thanks her. Burn asks if she suddenly dies, are there any time limits for resurrection? Lichte replies that there are no limits. At least it is possible for 100 years. Burn is surprised and asks about any special conditions that are required. Lichte replies that nothing extra needs to be done because he has trained many times on mice. Burn then asks what about resurrection from a distance. Lichte says he thinks it's impossible, you have to be right next to the dead person. Burn asks how far away his ability starts working. The young man says that he has never checked this, so he does not know for sure. The next moment, Burn began to bombard Lichte with questions, while Arya meanwhile was dozing peacefully on the bed. After a while, Burn apologizes and says that it is already late. Lichte says that it is okay because he also had fun talking to the girl. Burn thinks Lichte asks what's wrong. Burn says that she usually takes a bath at this time. She asks what they will do. Lichte asks the girl to wait and says that he will wake up Arya. Lichte approaches the girl and tries to wake her up. Suddenly, the girl tries to bite Lichte's hand, but the boy deftly dodges. Arya then asks what the boy wants from her. Burn says to the demon lord that she was planning to take a bath, so could the girl join her? Arya says she doesn't mind. Burn is very happy about this. Then she shows her ears and tail and thanks Mr. Lichte. The young man says that the girl has a tail. Burn says that she is safe now, so she does not have to hide it. Arya asks if Lichte will go with them. The boy refuses. Burn asks if Lichte is sure they will all be safe together. The boy says he is sure everything will be fine. Arya grabs Burn by the tail and tells her to take her to the bathroom. The girl gets embarrassed and says that they need to go that way. Burn clicks a book on the shelf, and suddenly a door opens to a secret room. Burn says that this room was made especially for her so that she could take care of her tail. She also says that she told the people that they needed the bathroom here so that they wouldn't waste time moving around the palace uselessly. Lichte thinks that she could sit in it safely. Arya walks into the bathroom and says that a wonderful job has been done here. The demon lord takes off her clothes and plans to go to the bath. Burn says she will have new clothes prepared for her. Arya says she will be grateful. The girl asks how to use this shower, and Burn is going to tell her about it. After a while, Arya is already in the bath. She asks why Burn won't get in the water. Burn replies that she will go there later, and first she needs to tidy up her tail. Arya says that it seems like it's not easy being a kitsune. She says that the girl takes such good care of her tail that she thinks it would fetch a good price. Burn grabs the tail and tells Arya not to say such things. Arya tells the girl not to worry because she didn't do such trifles. Arya sneers and says that for that she will let her pet her tail when she finishes grooming him. At this time, an unknown man wanders around the castle and says that the queen is not in sight. Suddenly, he sees an unusual guy in the room and says that when he was checking out the situation, he was not there. He says he doesn't look like he's one of the servants. The man thinks it's best to keep a low profile for now, even though he knows he could kill him with a poisoned blade. He won't hear or feel anything. He won't even have time to figure out who killed him. The man understands that the deadline for the order is the day after tomorrow, and there are no guarantees that he will be able to sneak in unnoticed again. He realizes he must act now. He leans out the window and uses the pipe. He then releases a spike with poison that hits Lichte right in the neck. The young man falls unconscious and dies. The man understands that he has hit the bull's eye, but the main problems are still ahead. Then Lichte wakes up and thinks he fell asleep. The man does not understand why Lichte is alive and maybe he missed, although he definitely hit the young man with a poison dart. It is possible that the poison did not work. Meanwhile, Lichte says that this is very strange and that he probably did not get enough rest during his vacation. Lichte walks around the room and inquires about Rose's well-being. Meanwhile, the man, afraid of being noticed, jumps off the floor and runs away. Meanwhile, Arya comes out of the bath and says that the bathroom was very nice. She asks if anything suspicious happened during all this time. Lichte gives a negative answer but is very doubtful about his answer. Arya asks what his uncertainty means. He says he seemed to lose consciousness for a moment, but he didn't sense any enemies, so it's unclear what it was. Lichte says he thinks he's just tired. Arya says his body is rested but his soul is not. She tells Lichte to say so right away. However, Arya says that it is not good that the young man suddenly fell. She says that the young man suddenly caught some disease. Although she notes that it is not like any disease she knows. She asks if the boy dies, will the disease go away or not? The boy says that most likely it will. Arya becomes mad and says that she will cure him perfectly. Burn apologizes for the wait and asks what Arya and Lichte are doing. Arya says she wanted to fix Lichte and he doesn't refuse. Lichte says that he could agree to that. Burn says she doesn't know what's going on between them, but she doesn't think it's anything serious. Arya sits on the bed and suddenly shudders. She says the window is open. Lichte gets scared and says it is indeed open. Arya's space control is a very powerful ability, but it has some limitations. It allows you to take control of space, warp it, cause all objects to slow down, and gives you a huge advantage in combat. However, if the window is open like this and someone decides to attack them, the space control does not work. The young man says that it seems that this old window is serious. If it is not closed carefully, it will not close completely. Burn says it's possible people have been using the lock for many years. Arya flops down on the bed and says she's going to sleep. Burn asks if she's going to sleep again. Burn says it's time for them to sleep too. This bed is spacious, the three of them can sleep. Lichte says they'll sleep on that sofa. Burn says Lichte shouldn't go there to sleep or his whole body will go numb. Arya grabs Burn by her soft tail and falls asleep. Lichte turns off the light and goes to bed. The next morning, Lichte opens his eyes to see Burn in front of him, wishing him good morning. The girl turns to Mr. Lichte and asks him why he left her alone yesterday. Lichte replies that he had not planned anything like that, but he himself thinks that something seems to have happened. Burn asks if Lichte needs to make coffee. The young man agrees and says that he will go and wake up Arya for now. Lichte walks over to the bed where Arya is snoring sweetly. He pulls the blanket off her and tells her good morning. Arya curls up and starts tossing and turning in bed. She opens her eyes and starts rubbing them. Everyone wishes her good morning. The girl jumps out of bed. The girl gets dressed and asks if Lichte is okay. She says that yesterday he suddenly fell. The young man replies that everything is okay now. Arya is already dressed. Lichte says that yesterday it was enough to just sleep a little, and what happened yesterday was a simple coincidence. The girl comes to the window and then calls him to the window. Arya asks him if he thinks there is a suspicious guy here. Lichte asks which person Arya is talking about since he can't see him. Arya talks about the man standing in the shadows. Lichte apologizes and says that his eyesight is not as good as the demon lord's. Arya says that it is hard being a human. Arya opens the window. The man suddenly flinches. Arya realizes that the man reacted to the open window. Arya asks the boy to take care of Burn. Arya says he's going to run away and they don't have much time. Lichte says he understands. Arya jumps out of the window and says that she never doubted it. Lichte thinks Arya should take action. The girl chases after the man and sees that he seems to be alone. She wonders where the man is heading. The man deftly jumps from one height to another, trying to escape. Arya, meanwhile, says that it will be an easy victory. They see a man running into the church. Arya enters and sees many parishioners of the temple. The girl apologizes for the intrusion. A woman approaches her and apologizes, saying that only believers can enter here. She says that they will gladly accept her if she is one of them. Arya says she has some business here. A man just ran in. The woman asks what the girl is talking about now because no one came in here. Arya tells the woman not to try to deceive her and to answer before she destroys their entire church. Arya starts to get angry and asks where the man went. Suddenly, the woman gets angry and calls for help. Suddenly, Arya is surrounded by people from the church, and they tell her that they feel like the young lady has been keeping her distance. Arya says she doesn't think so and she's glad they came to an agreement quickly. The woman calls Arya impudent and grabs her by the flower vase. She pours out the water and swings the vase, trying to hit Arya, but suddenly everything around is covered in blood. The woman doesn't understand what's happening. Arya smiles and says that the woman will be next. She asks if the woman wants to answer her question now. The bodies of her comrades were around the woman. Arya smiles and starts to approach the woman. The woman asks to wait. Arya is absolutely serious. The woman says that the one the girl is looking for is here, in the dungeon, and she just needs to go through that closet. Arya asks about the dungeon. The woman panics and says that it is true. In fact, it is not a church but the entrance to the Twilight Guild. Arya asks how many people are down there. The woman says there are 100 people at most in the dungeon. Arya says she understands everything and then asks the woman to disappear. Arya opens the door and sees a staircase, and at the end a room from which light was visible. One man asked if another man was saying that the queen had hired a monster to guard her. The other man was a recent murderer. He said that was exactly it. He says he was 100 meters away, but the monster sensed him, and then it jumped out of the window and chased him. The other man says that sounds very unconvincing. The man says that the man is just trying to make excuses for not fulfilling the order. The man with glasses says that if we assume that he is telling the truth, then what should they do? Surely the queen will not publicly announce her new security detail. They think the press would pay well for such a sensation. However, before they spread the news, they need proof. They say that Rise can do it because they're going to go there again anyway. He asks them not to talk like it's a piece of cake. The man says that this monster probably remembered her face and will now be on guard. Also, the queen's room has been cast with protective magic that neutralizes the effects of poisons. He refuses to work like that. The man asks if Rise is chickening out. He asks who will do the job for her then. The other man stands up and says he can, but only for double the price. The man with glasses tuts and thanks Rise for causing the problem with his cowardice. The man laughs and says that maybe his career will take off. The man with glasses says that if he gets caught, he shouldn't say a word about them. He tells the man not to worry because he will kill the queen. Suddenly, the man soars into the sky, and behind him a woman's voice is heard, saying that this is not the same man. Suddenly, Arya appears behind him. Rise recognizes her as the monster. Arya says that this is the same man who ran away as soon as he saw her. She says that this man bragged that he would kill the queen, so she was wrong. Rise asks how she found them. Arya says she was just following his trail. Rise asks about the guards, but Arya says they told her all about their Twilight Guild. She says that it is time to punish the queen's enemies, but they apparently already realized it themselves. The man attacks Arya, but the girl uses her ability to control space. Suddenly, everyone around them froze. The girl says that for humans, they can move pretty well, but it still won't help. Rise screams for no one to miss the girl, but in an instant, everything around is covered in blood. Rise is left alone with Arya. The girl says that only Rise is left. His friends turned out to be completely useless. Rise couldn't believe that all this was happening for real. Arya says that Rise didn't even have time to scream. She says she will ask them one last time why they are hunting Byrne, the queen. Rise says they never reveal their employers. Arya says that it appears that one of the nobles was unhappy with the queen's actions and hired them. Arya says that it appears she is right. She grabs the man by the neck and says that both people and magical creatures are the same. After a while, Byrne bowed and thanked her saviors. She said that she had already sent a garrison to clean everything up. She was also surprised that Arya had destroyed the entire Twilight Guild, which had cost a lot of money to fight. Byrne asks how she can thank Arya, but the girl says she doesn't need anything. Arya turns around and tells Lichte that they are leaving. Byrne asks them to wait. The girl thinks that Arya has done her too much of a favor. Now, even if she tells her to hang a bomb on her neck and rush into the attack, she will not be able to refuse. She needs to at least repay the debt a little. She says that there is very interesting information for them in this country. She thinks that Mr. Lichte will be very interested in it. Lichte is surprised by this. Byrne says that long ago there lived a woman here, whom everyone called the Righteous One. When she died, she was buried by order of God himself, but no one knows where exactly she is buried. The most important thing is that she managed to find a book that indicated the burial place of the righteous woman. Arya is surprised by this. Byrne says that becoming a queen gave her access to places where ordinary people are not allowed. This book was under strict guard, so she thinks it makes sense to study it. Lichte says that if the location is known, it will be possible to resurrect her. Arya says that it is interesting, and she also lacks workers, and it is curious to take a look at this righteous one. If there is trouble with her, you can always kill her again. She asks where this place is. Byrne leafs through the book and says that it seems to be in the forest. She gives the book to Arya and says that details can be found on the map drawn there. Lichte says that if it's in the woods, it's best to get there before dark. Arya says she doesn't mind. Lichte thinks that it might not be possible to subdue her using resurrection. They'll have to come up with some kind of cover story for her, and it'll be less suspicious if they do it during the day instead of at night. Arya says she will go with Lichte to the burial site, and then he will have to act on his own. Lichte realizes that Dorothy could be useful now. Byrne calls him and says that if he has to kill the righteous one, then he should make sure that no one ever finds her body, otherwise there will be a big stir. Lichte agrees. So they set off to meet their new friend.